onWURD, also a very reliable WURD TV live stream. WURD app. Catch us live on WURD app. Take WURD wherever you go. Where there is a word, there is indeed an app for that. You can download it on your Google Play Store, your Apple Store. Do that today. Do that today on your preferred digital choice of poison, as I sometimes like to say. You can definitely download the WURD app, take it wherever you go around the city, around the region, around the state, around the nation, or across the nation and around the world as well. Good morning to you all. I am Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, and creator of Reality Check here this Tuesday morning. And you can catch me on Twitter.com at Ellison Report, hashtag Reality Check, hashtag Reality Check, Twitter.com, hashtag Reality Check. Real major day in Philadelphia. Just want to start with a little local news. I don't know if people are aware that we have hit a milestone. We have hit a rather grim milestone. We are now at 363 homicides in the city of Philadelphia, 360 homicides. Yesterday it was just 355, and we have now surpassed the full record of homicides for 2019. It was 356 homicides total in 2019. We are now at 363 in Philadelphia. The homicide rate is 40%. 40%. It is near double what it was this time last year. 40% above where it was this time last year. This time last year, it was 260 homicides. It is now 363. That is very concerning. So that is 103 homicides more than what we had at this time last year. Once again, the homicide rate in Philadelphia is at alarming levels. It is at 103 homicides more than where it was at this time last year. All right, so that's 40% above. We have nearly double the rate of homicides, and I don't think we can stress that enough here on WURD, on Reality Check. The fact that now the Philadelphia homicide rate, we're not even in full, like we haven't even gotten settled into October yet, right? We haven't even gotten settled into October yet. We have essentially 3 more months left, 3 more months left in 2020, in the year of our Lord 2020. We have 3 more months left, and already we've surpassed the homicide rate from 2019. City officials have got to do something. City officials have got to do something a lot more dramatic, a lot more urgent than what they are doing now, because obviously it is very clear if you have now a homicide rate and you have 3 months left in a year, and you've already surpassed your homicide rate from the previous year, that means that you are not doing anything, that you are not being effective. You are clearly mismanaging. There is wholesale mismanagement of the response to Philadelphia's gun violence and homicide crisis. That means that you do not know what you are doing, City Hall. This is because remember yesterday we had it at 355. No, it was 354. It's 354 homicides as of the official tally. This is from the Philadelphia Police Department as of yesterday. Now it ballooned 9 homicides more to 363 the next day. So this is, it already was a cause for concern in Philadelphia. It is even worse. Something is going on. Something's definitely in the water in Philadelphia, but also something is not happening. Something is not going on in Philadelphia City Hall. Because now, once again, and I have to stress this again, now Philadelphia's homicide rate with now 3 months to go in the year 2020 has surpassed. So we are potentially looking at going to 400 homicides plus by the time we get to New Year's Eve 2020. It's a very sad state of affairs in Philadelphia, a very sad state of affairs. The sad state of affairs in Philadelphia is not the state of its sports teams. The sad state of affairs in Philly is an entire city government gripped by inaction, ineptitude, and incompetence, and inability and lack of creativity to respond effectively, to have allowed the rate of homicides with 3 months left in the year 2020 to outpace, to outrun, to now surpass the homicide rate from the total 12-month homicide rate, which was already bad, from last year. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. We'd love to get your thoughts. I wouldn't love to get your thoughts. I mean, unfortunately, I have to solicit your thoughts, the listening audience's thoughts, particularly in the Philadelphia area. I have to solicit your thoughts, tragically and unfortunately, on this milestone that we've officially reached here in Philadelphia. It is not a good state of affairs in Philly. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Also in other news nationally, we're bracing for what promises to be a rather interesting and insightful vice presidential debate, and perhaps a much more substantive, a much more thoughtful vice presidential debate between vice presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris, Senator from California, and also current vice president, current incumbent Mike Pence. So we are bracing for that. We will give some more analysis and coverage, of course, today. And you can go to #WURD on politics for live tweeting, live analysis. I'm sure Politico is going to reach out to me. I'll probably offer some more analysis to Politico, to Politico.com in the aftermath of that vice presidential debate. But perhaps we will walk away from that vice presidential debate remembering what the candidates said. So, because I still cannot recall, and I'm the guy who's supposed to watch it for you and who's supposed to follow these things. I cannot remember exactly what was said at the first presidential debate last week. I'm not just saying that facetiously. That's not a joke. I'm trying not to be funny, but it's hard not to laugh. But I really don't remember what was said. I can only kind of refer back to news reports, and I watched the whole thing. I sat through it, unfortunately, but we're bracing for that as well. Also, we got a spate of battleground state polls that are coming out showing Biden with leads across the board in major battleground states, including Pennsylvania. He's ahead in the latest Change Research poll in Pennsylvania by about 4 percentage points, which I still think is too slim, especially considering what's been happening now. But we'll go over those polls a little bit later on. Let me go ahead and go to the phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Lynn out of Darby, who's calling in for a reality check. Lynn?
Good morning, Charles and WURD family. I just wanted to add my 2 cents about the gun violence. It is really, really, really depressing. And I heard on WURD 6 o'clock show that a guest called in and said at every Thursday they're going to try to rally around the mayor's house and complain about it because they gave some suggestions to the city council. And if nothing is acted upon, they're going to, rev up the momentum to complain around his house. So that's one way of complaining. And I really think we should just branch off and make our own gun laws because it is just getting off the chain. And about Trump, I'm just so disgusted with his behavior. And I just can't see how politically all of us could let him get away with it. If it was a person of color they be yanked out of that position, acting like that, doing these daily rants and, you know, the stuff about COVID. I just had it with him. He's just really getting on my last nerve. And I just want to encourage everybody to vote, fill out your census, and, the seat for the Senate when Toomey leaves, I recommend Miss McClinton. She is so sharp. Nice-looking, smart black woman. And if she doesn't run, I recommend you or Solomon. But then I would miss all the news that y'all give us daily. So just a suggestion. And have a nice day, Charles.
All right, you do the same, Ms. Lynn. I appreciate that. So I can tell you I have no desire whatsoever to run for any elected office. I have been asked in the past on multiple occasions. I'm just not going to do it. But I appreciate that. I appreciate the thought, though. I appreciate the sentiment. Very, very interesting name that you brought up. Joanna McClinton, state rep out of the Philly area. Her name always comes up for a number of positions. And so that's actually the first time I've heard someone just publicly say, hey, you know what, maybe she should consider that Senate seat in 2022. So, you know, obviously Senator Pat Toomey, current incumbent Senator Pat Toomey, may be seeing some writing on the wall. We're not sure. He hasn't really internally within his own state, hasn't come under a lot of fire. I mean, that's speaking of places to protest out in front of, it's Senator Pat Toomey's Philadelphia office. You never see that really happening or bubbling up. But yeah, that's the other big news in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Senator Pat Toomey is going to resign, is stepping down after this current term. If Philly hadn't reached this very grim, deadly milestone today, I probably would have been talking about that. But you know, the real important news, obviously, of course, in Philly, and as Ms. Lynn just stated, it's the gun violence. It's out of control. People are going to have to do more than all. I appreciate, I respect that folks are going to create some advocacy momentum around this topic, and so that there are plans to protest in front of the mayor's house. People are going to have to do more than that, and it's going to have to be all hands on deck, because I should add, this is not just a failure of City Hall. This is not just a failure of Philadelphia City Hall. It's not just a failure by the mayor, by the city council, and other elected officials as well. Let's throw the state representative, state senate delegation for Philly in that crop as well, because it's obviously it's wholesale, it's just epic failure and epic lack of creativity on the part of the elected class in Philly. It is also reflective of the community's failure, our collective. We also take responsibility. We are culpable in the rate of violence reaching these levels, or the rate of homicides in Philadelphia reaching this level in 2020. This is all around. This is full circle blame on everyone. This is pox on all of us. We're not working hard enough. We're not working hard enough. We're not working intently enough. We're not focused enough. We're fractured. We're not unified. We're all over the place. We're sloppy. We're messy. There is no real agenda, no real plan. No one's unified. You know, one person or one group is over in West Philly doing their thing. Another group over in North Philly's doing their thing. Everybody's all split up. It's a hot mess. And so this is, it's everyone. We're all responsible for this when it reaches this level. Obviously, we're all taxpayers, we're residents, and there is a basic expectation that city government is supposed to respond. City and state government is supposed to respond adequately to crises and effectively to crises like this, but they're not. But this is also this goes back on us too. Elias out of North Philly is calling in for a reality check.
Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Elias. What's happening? All right.
All right. Hey, listen. I wanted to continue on our conversation yesterday, but you went to a commercial and stuff. But I'm glad you're bringing this up, bro, because you know how I am about this. I'm pretty much adamant about this crime and the violence that's going on. So, listen, there's a bunch of components that's causing this. We all know this, but like you exactly said, it starts off what we're doing, other than the politicians. And we need to bring more awareness of that. So we need to change the dialogue and that blame and point the finger. People don't want to point fingers, but we need to call out these deplorable adults in our community. And we have to make this consistent and announcing it, because it starts off at home. I mean, I live in these communities, and I see the behaviors from our people in our community. Now, to the politicians, because, like I said, these businesses that are part of enabling this drug addictions and these behaviors as well, we have to do something and call out these politicians. And you know what? Talking about state representatives, I need you to look up Mr. Burgos. He's a state representative, Danilo Burgos. He's a state representative that presents our city. And back in 1990, he came from the Dominican Republic, and his family opened up a grocery store in North Philadelphia. And we should put him on this show and ask him what is his business association members, his 385 business association members that have opened up stores throughout the city of our city, and ask him what product you sold. Hello?
Yeah, I was real curious too, Elias, because I know you'll be voting this year and this cycle that's coming up. Are you also voting or participating in the state legislative elections that are taking place this year?
No, but if you could give me some information, I would love to. But
okay, yeah, that's and I didn't ask that to chastise you, but I just kind of did that as a sort of an instructive moment. Yeah, well, no, real quick, because I think that's real important. The fate of Harrisburg, or what the power balance will be in Harrisburg, because Republicans run the state legislature right now in Harrisburg, and the ability of Philly to get resources, to get the kind of response they need from the state is hampered because it's handicapped because of that, because Republicans, they don't like Philly, they don't like the black folks in Philly, and that's created a real problem in terms of the state's response to or helping the city in the gun violence and other issues you're raising. You try to learn more about, and maybe I need to do a little bit more daily, reminding people it's not just the presidential election taking place this year. You will see on your ballot state races for state representative, races for state senate. There's also state legislative elections taking place in Pennsylvania as well. And what I'll do, Elias, I gotta let you go because we gotta come to break, but during the course of this broadcast, I'll try to look for like a central place people can go to, because you need to pay attention. We need to pay attention, and it's not your fault, Elias. Only a quarter of the population on average knows who their state representative is, or who their state senator is, or that they even have a state legislative election coming up. But Democrats may have a chance this season to retake Harrisburg, retake the state legislature, which could change a lot of things, because remember, Democrats in the city and state reps, state senators always complaining that they can't get money or resources out of Harrisburg because Republicans are running the legislature. Okay, well, we're going to give you a chance to flip Harrisburg. That also has to happen. That's a big race in Pennsylvania this year. So I hope that, once we give you that information, that you will be paying attention to that and you will be voting in it. I got to let you go, Elias. Let me take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to be talking with Scott Seaboard of All Voting is Local. He's the Pennsylvania State Director for All Voting is Local. Coming up next here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Get your money straight. Get my money right. It's Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan. Fridays on Wake Up with WURD. 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and on the WURD Radio app. The North Star Convention is a statewide event where concerned citizens, lawmakers, union, and community leaders are collectively working together to create an agenda that will address systemic issues in the black community throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Friday, October 9th, will feature keynote speaker Sabrina Fulton. Go to northstarconvention.com to register for the free convention.
Hi, I'm Melanie DeBose. I'm a single mom and I run a nonprofit. I don't have a lot of free time, and the safety of my family and employees always comes first. That's why I'm voting by mail this year.
Whether you're a Pennsylvania senior, essential worker, or simply someone who needs more flexibility to vote within a challenging schedule, voting by mail allows you to make your voice heard at the ballot box on your schedule while protecting your family's health. You can turn your mailbox into a ballot box by simply visiting votespa.com on your computer or any mobile device to request your mail-in ballot. With November 3rd around the corner, it's more important than ever to request your mail-in ballot today.
This year, I'm voting by mail because it's safe and easy. Voting on my time while keeping my family and employees safe.
We're all in this together, and voting by mail gives you the power to make your voice heard. So sign up at votespa.com or return your mail-in ballot application to your county election office today. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
WURDradio.com. WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the upcoming election.
This is Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check on WURD. Are you a Philly area voter who received your mail-in ballot but suddenly decided you want to vote in person? If you returned your complete ballot to the county election office by October 27th, you may not vote in person on election day. However, if you don't return your complete mail-in ballot to your county before October 27th, you can go to a polling place, surrender your unvoted ballot and voter's declaration envelope, sign a statement, and vote on the machines. Keep following us at onWURD on Twitter, Facebook.com/4WURD, and #Word on Politics for constant updates on election 2020. And remember, vote early.
Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit WURDradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. We're here on the Tuesday edition. I just want to take a few moments to get Scott Seaborg. He is Pennsylvania State Director for All Voting is Local. Go to allvotingislocal.org for more information, learn about what they're up to, and also how you can get involved as well and making this election as transparent, as secure, as accessible, and as unsuppressed as possible in this 2020 election cycle. We were trying to get Scott by Skype, and we've got him. Scott joining us by Skype here on Reality Check this Tuesday morning. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me, Charles.
All right, I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about House Resolution 1032. That passed recently in the Pennsylvania House Committee on State Government. And so that passed along party lines. Why are you so alarmed about this? What does this resolution do?
It is a absolute bald-faced, cynical political move by the committee chair to usurp voters' confidence in the election, and incredibly to allow the committee to subpoena voters and election officials on election day should they so choose.
Wow.
Now, they maintain that that's not the interest that they're after here. They maintain that they don't see something like that happening, but acknowledge that it's possible. And one of the things to sort of think about here is to establish a select committee, all the House has to do is vote along a simple majority. There's no veto from the governor. There's no action in the Senate. If they choose to pass this resolution, the committee will be established. And it would be fine for a committee to check out our elections after the fact, right? We want to make sure that we're doing audits. We want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. However, they decline to note that this committee would be looking at the elections after they already happened. And so we believe that that does not speak to good intentions.
It sounds McCarthy-esque. So any average voter, any voter in the state of, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a voter in Philly could be just subpoenaed, could just one day just receive, could get served with a subpoena by the Select Committee on Election Integrity. That's just very McCarthyistic.
I don't think that you're wrong there. I think that this is absolutely, I think, in keeping with tactics out there from various political entities that are designed to specifically target Philadelphia as a bad actor when we know that's not the case, and to encourage intervention in an ongoing election. And I mean, we're talking about, a subpoena being served potentially on election day, potentially removing election officials from their jobs so that they can go and answer questions. I'm not sure what about, ostensibly irregularities, but it's absolutely unacceptable, and the House needs to not do it.
So, and people should understand, once again, I was just going back to before you came on, this is why, people, you have to pay attention to your state legislative races this year. There is a presidential election this year. Pennsylvania is a very crucial battleground state in that presidential election. But the political fate of Harrisburg is also at stake this year. There are state legislative races. There are races for the Pennsylvania General Assembly. Those are taking place, and this is one of those reasons why you got to pay attention to what's happening in Harrisburg. This resolution establishes the Select Committee on Election Integrity. That's what it's called, Select Committee on Election Integrity. And now they might argue, Scott, that, well, there's some good things in this. In the legislation, they're talking about, or they're proposing allocating $90 million for election security. So it's, allocating $90 million to ensure that Pennsylvanians could vote safely and securely on modern voting machines. Is that, so I mean, are there some, certain provisions in this act which looking at them on its face, they're actually positive if they were implemented?
So I think that the way this bill was introduced and the sort of way the committee would be not compromised, but put together would be 3 individuals from the majority party, which right now is Republican, and 2 individuals from the minority party, which right now is Democrat. Other committees, other vehicles that have been stood up to look at the elections, specifically the one that just happened after the primary, have an equal number of people from both sort of camps in the political party so that they aren't tilted one way or the other. They also don't tend to look at elections and work through subpoenas as they're happening. We think that looking at these elections and really, kind of doing an autopsy on what exactly happened here, how did Pennsylvanians vote, and how secure was it? We know it's going to be secure. We know a lot of people are going to vote, but we need to do it after the election. While it's happening, it's unacceptable, and it is adding to a climate of obstruction, and it really doesn't feel like oversight to me to try to do this before an election and during an election. And so I think that's the issue. There are some provisions in there where we're looking at how this went and what changes are necessary. That's great. We want to do that. Mm-hmm. However, we need to give voters the confidence that Pennsylvania election officials are going to conduct this election in the way they always have, and our elections work out. We elect people and we do the analysis afterwards, and it's okay. The fact that they want to come in and call this oversight when really it's an obstruction is something that we just don't agree with.
And Scott, I know you're limited in what you can say. I know all voting is local, is nonpartisan. I myself, however, I'm not. I don't. Those constraints don't apply to me. But I say this in a nonpartisan manner. This is a really serious and significant development in Pennsylvania, a key battleground state, during a major presidential, like a life and death, high stakes presidential election. And it's just displaying the lengths to which, once again, Republicans as a whole will go to cheat in an election. This is just wholesale cheating. This is to tip the scales in a major national battleground state during a high stakes life and death election. Considering what's happening in Washington, what we're seeing unfolding in Washington now, just the hot, soupy dumpster fire mess that's the alarming state. I mean, the alarming 3-alarm going to 4 or 5-alarm fire state that the country is in. And I don't know how these Republicans, and I'm specifically calling out Republicans, and I'm not saying that partisan, because I'm just seeing it's a pattern, and they're all in it. Like I don't understand it. I don't understand how some of these folks call themselves going to places of worship every Sunday. I don't know how they raise families. I don't know how they're raising kids engaged in this kind of sinister, evil, I mean, just straight up, downright evil kind of activity. It just boggles my mind still. So it's just something. I have to ask you, Scott, what's the counter, however? If voters are getting subpoenas, are there organizations that they can call to defy those subpoenas? I mean, do people have any recourse here? Can the Secretary of State in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, can elections officials, can they defy those subpoenas? Can they basically say, hey, listen, this is a political move. This is not right. This is unconstitutional. And this is you cheating. I'm not going to answer this. I'm not responding to this subpoena. I'm going to defy it. What sort of legal policy recourse do people have from the Secretary of State of the state down to the average resident in Pennsylvania? What levels of recourse do they have?
So we definitely know that the election protection team in Pennsylvania, of which we are a part and Common Cause Pennsylvania is leading, is going to be fully staffed up at polling locations doing polling observer. And so they would look for anybody disrupting or intimidating, but also for any type of inconsistencies or irregularities that they can find. And so as soon as something like that, should this resolution pass, happen, the election protection people on the ground will feed that information up to legal professionals that are in a nonpartisan space, really just trying to make sure that the election happens well, the election is secure and with integrity. I'm not exactly sure what the legal recourse is, but I imagine it would have something to do with county solicitors and sort of the county government apparatus where that poll worker is. One other thing I would say is that this is like watching dominoes fall down from the certain politicians constantly attacking mail-in voting in Pennsylvania specifically. lawsuits designed to knock down our bipartisan democratic options to vote, as well as now this select committee looking to really just agitate voters. And it really seems like this is a concerted effort to suppress votes.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, there's no proof, there's no evidence that mail-in voting creates a fraudulent situation. None. You can ask every last member of this committee, show me the receipts. There's no evidence of that. There's no research. Real quick, Scott, before I let you go, people are wondering about this effort by the president. You know, he specifically called out Philadelphia last week during the debate, encouraging people to go to Philadelphia, go to the Philadelphia region, and become poll watchers. And people are worried about voter intimidation taking place at their respective polling precinct. What should people do?
So, be a poll worker. Go to thevoterproject.org, and folks can sign up to be a poll worker. You can also call 1-866-OUR-VOTE and volunteer to be a poll observer and get out in your community, be on the ground, help be a vote guardian, and lift folks up, ameliorate problems that are out there in terms of, I have a question about this, or can I vote? I have a record. Yes, almost always in Pennsylvania you can vote. And really just looking to report back to the state on what's going on, or not the state, but the state election protection apparatus, and really be there for voters. I think that one way to really take the temperature down is to make sure we have community members out at the polls, talking to voters, observing what's happening, and then reporting that back to the legal professionals that are standing by to jump in and make sure that there's no shenanigans.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. 866-OUR-VOTE. I mean, that's a good place to start. Yeah, be a poll watcher, be a poll observer, be community, and there are still like slots left for poll workers. I know in Philadelphia, I know the city commissioner's office is working on that. There's a big recruitment effort, and you can get paid for participating as a poll worker on that day. Scott Seaborg is Pennsylvania State Director for All Voting is Local. Go to allvotingislocal.org as well. Learn more about what's happening, what they're up to, how you can get involved. Also, you're going to want to visit All Voting is Local and get geared up to protect yourself as a voter. They are engaged in quite a bit of election protection activity. I know they're doing the work. Scott, it's always good to talk with you. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Absolutely grateful to be here.
All right, bro. Take care. Be safe out there. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we're just going to open phone lines at 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
2020 is the year of voter options. We have many different ways to exercise one of the most important activities in our lifetime. Some of us might be voting by mail, but the rest of us can still vote safely while masked up and social distancing in person at your local polling locations. If you're in Philadelphia, learn more about where your polling location might be at either votespa.com or philadelphiavotes.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early.
Through farmlands, cities, trails, and beaches, the Delaware River watershed provides drinking water to more than 13 million people. Imagine where we would be if we didn't protect all of our waterways, the streams, the creeks, and the rivers that run through our region. We would be without abundant wildlife, without vital ecosystems, without nature to escape to learn from. Visit watershedalliance.org to learn about river days and find yourself in nature.
Man, this coronavirus has us all moving differently.
No doubt. Like washing our hands more and social distancing with the crew. I'm always telling people to give me 6 feet. We're here, Grandma.
There's my babies. Good to see you got your mask on.
Wear mask. Stop the spread. For more information, visit www.pa.gov/COVID.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard.
Stay connected to WURD Radio.
Independent Black Media.
The time is now to put an end to the chronic incompetence of Donald Trump and his League of Liars. Donald Trump makes a mockery of the institution of the presidency. He's polarized our country, and his dangerous policies must not continue. Joe Biden has the character, empathy, and experience to lead us through these challenging times. He helped lead the nation out of the 2008 financial crisis into the longest period of economic growth in our history, and he can do it again. As president, he will heal divisions and unite us around the shared values of justice. He'll create opportunities for quality education and good-paying jobs, and he'll build on the Affordable Care Act, not tear it down. While Donald Trump thinks coronavirus and climate change are a hoax, Joe Biden already has a coronavirus recovery plan and a strategy to create more jobs while also tackling the climate crisis. Vote for a president who will stand on the right side of history. Vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by Black PAC and Priorities USA Action. BlackPAC.com and PrioritiesUSAAction.org, which are responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Livelihood, the new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to the phone lines. We have George out of Center City calling in for Reality Check. George?
Charles, how you doing this morning?
Hey, what's happening? Good morning.
Good. You know, Charles, I really very seldom agree with Maurice on things. But I have to almost agree with him on this whole violence thing. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much you're the primary source of could have had this not go this far. But for some reason or another, you ignored it. Now it's out of control. You want to bring it back to the attention of the public. And then you want to say it's the public's responsibility and fault to straighten this mess out. No, it's not. Mm-hmm. You have people whose job is to straighten it out. And forget them elected officials. They out of the equation, okay? They got to sit down and sit back and watch how all of it play out, you know? And then you always had these other naysayers and these wannabes. Oh, George always getting on black people. I don't see no white folks killing black folks. Mm-hmm. And the people who can stop it won't stop it. The people who are responsible for this foolishness keeps their mouth shut. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a shame. If you weren't doing your job, Charles, would you still be there?
Mm-hmm. No, of course not.
Oh, they would. What would they do? They would fire you, right?
Right.
Or
right. That's lack of performance
for your resignation, right? With no problem. The point is that Kenny put this whole city in a situation when those special group of Negroes went in the room and negotiated. They negotiated for a black, and that's what they got. Never said, give us the best qualified commissioner you can find. No, we want a black and we want a woman, which they thought that they was going to get somebody from the city, which they would have never gotten. Mm-hmm. But be careful who go in the room negotiating for you. Because like I say, they was in there negotiating for themselves. They wasn't negotiating for me or anybody else. But, Charles, the reason I blame you for it is because you could have been bringing the people in to answer the questions. You could have been putting the people in the hot seat because you're about the only one don't play with them. Because it's a few other hosts that don't play with them, but majority, they got to do as they're told. You know, don't mention the administration, don't talk bad about Kenny, and you can't talk about the police commissioner because she's a black woman. It's only going to get worse because you know why? Black folks can't talk about her because she's a black woman.
You know, what I think is, you know, and I'm willing to, you know, like I said before, and I said this earlier on, George. Yeah, I think we all should take blame. I think it's it's just holistic. It's wholesale. No, we all should. We all should because George, you can't. But George, listen. No, I'll let you talk because you're contradicting yourself. On one hand, you're coming on here and you're talking about, well, I don't see white folks shooting black folks, and you are putting in those charges. And I don't totally disagree with you. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a personal responsibility aspect and level to this. So you're on one hand, you're saying black folks and black neighborhoods have to take personal responsibility. But on the other hand, you're like, oh, but, you know, we shouldn't all, you shouldn't be blaming everyone. No, there's wholesale, there's wholesale across the board blame. We all are to blame on different levels for why there is this epic failure in the city. So now we have to figure out, okay, well, I mean, I hear you, and I don't totally disagree with you. And now I'm wondering, like, okay, well, George, like, what's the plan? What is the plan to get out of this? What do you suggest that we do? I mean, what do you suggest we do from this point forward, moving forward? So I don't mind accepting some of that, although, I'm in my lane and I'm doing what I can do in my lane, and I understand other people, because then you know how it goes in Philly. Everybody's so cliquish. You start to go over into a lane and people have an issue with it. So I do what I can do on this program and try to spread as much awareness, or I talk to certain folks in DC when I can, and try to create that awareness and try to get that information out there, try to get those ideas out there, try to get those guests on there. So it's, and I understand that there are people in their lanes doing and specializing in what they have to do, because there can be a lot of redundancy that happens when suddenly you're jumping into other people's spaces. So, I just need to know the plan. What's the plan? Because, you come on here quite a bit and you tell us about, and I totally agree. I totally appreciate you, George, when you identify the problem. But what is the plan? After a while, I don't, you know how I am, George. I get impatient after a while talking ad nauseum about the problem. After a while, I'm like, okay, well, what's the plan? Like, what do you suggest we do? Where do we go from here?
Charles, you asking the public for a plan, and the police commissioner has been here however long, and she has yet to even give you a plan or talk about a plan, because you don't have a plan.
I agree. We've been calling her, George. She hasn't come on the program yet.
But the point is, Charles, you have a microphone. She will come. If you listen, one thing I know,
bro, I'm trying. I've got like multiple things. The last thing I have time to do is to be chasing after folks, or having Troy chasing after folks every day. We got things to do. We got other issues to cover. We got other things. I mean, it's a whole world of things to do. I mean, I'm not going to be like, kind of like begging the police commissioner every day, and I'm not going to put Troy through that or anyone else through that, to be begging the police commissioner to come on for like 15 minutes by phone. I'm not asking her to come in the studio.
Charles,
just come by phone and just talk about, like, what is your plan?
Charles, you really lack your ability to make her do something, or anybody. These elected officials, if you start talking about them the way they're supposed to be talked about, they will come. And they'll be glad to come on. You know what this administration don't like? To be talked about. You know why they shut everybody up? Because they don't want to be talked about. I'm the only one that will say something. You dare not have anybody sit up there and talk about this administration or their police commissioner. She's not qualified, and they don't like me saying that, but she's overwhelmed. The cops don't even work with her.
Like it.
The people getting killed, Charles. People getting killed. Kids getting killed. Women getting killed. So don't tell me about we got to come up with a plan. They got to come up with a plan first. I don't think it's the public's job to be out there with people shooting, acting like fools.
I didn't say that. But George, I didn't say that. I didn't say that people need to be out there in the streets, like, wearing fatigues and like on the front lines battling this thing themselves. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just suggesting that we're going to have to be creative here, and then we're going to have to look at, okay, well, what are people's respective skill sets and commitments inside the community? We're going to have to think creatively, and we're going to have to think a lot more deeply and intently, and think about what are some creative ways that we tackle this on all sorts of levels. Like Elias came on earlier, he called and he was like, hey, you know what starts in the household? Okay, well, what are some things that we need to be doing as families, as parents, as households, as churches, as mosques? What are some things that we need to be doing? How do we need to keep, our young people, how do we keep them, especially during the pandemic, how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them, from being idle? So that they're not engaged in certain activities. What are some things? I mean, that's what I'm talking. That's what I mean by that. I'm like, we're not thinking like that. We're not thinking in a unified, creative, and collaborative fashion, and it's frustrating me. It's frustrating me, and that's all I was saying. Hey, George, I gotta let you go because I gotta take this other call. But I appreciate you, George. Thank you. Jay, out of West Philly, is calling in for a reality check. Jay.
God bless, Bob. God bless, Brother Charles. How you making out, family?
All right. What's happening?
Yeah, give y'all the glory. As always, thanks for your show. I really appreciate your intelligent approach and the way you bring up subject matter others don't. And God bless Brother Troy. He's always doing an amazing job. God bless the WRD family, all the victims, everyone suffering. Hearts go out to them. Everyone working to make it better. And I don't mean no offense, but that was a waste of 7 minutes. And I ain't mad at George, but come on. Anyway, let me get to the point. Number one, where can we get practice ballots so that those of us who want to study and educate ourselves about these candidates can do so?
Yeah, I mean, you should be getting. You haven't received a sample ballot?
Not yet.
Okay. And you know what? Go to kind of start that process right now. Jay, a couple of things you can do. One, you can go to one of those satellite election offices that have just opened up throughout Philly, because you know that they open up about 7 so far. Yeah, like you're in West Philly, right? So you might want to check out Overbrook Elementary School. They've got that's one of the first 7 offices that open up September 29th. The satellite, you can do early voting there. You can get those sample ballots. You can request a mail-in ballot, or you could be right on the spot and kind of start that whole process of voting. And so that's one way. Or go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com and you'll get that information there.
Thank you, Brother Charles. Not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but I want to get this point in before you hang up on me and go to the break. Number one, I do see white people killing black people, and a lot of them is called police. So I don't know what George was talking about. But I will say this, though.
You're right.
Don't just say something, do something. A lot of people griping about what they're doing. Also, real quick, everyone ain't a doctor. And everyone ain't a plumber. When you got problems with your pipes, you call a plumber. When you got problems with your body, you call a doctor. Some people are qualified to treat themselves, but there are people who are qualified to deal with the violence. And I think one thing I don't hear people doing when it comes to stopping the violence is creating a plan to educate our people on how we've been miseducated. Expose the lies, reveal the truths, not just the intricacies of our experience here on the enslavement, but also before the boat, before the transatlantic slave trade, the great cultures and civilizations we brought to the entire planet. And there's authors that have volumes of work on that. J. Rogers, Ivan Van Sertima, John Jackson, just to name a few. Most efforts sound to me, most of the people talking about stopping the violence, it's like somebody coming to repair your house and you got structural and foundational damage. They give you a paint job and tell you the job is done. Meanwhile, the house going to collapse. And also, watch out for these certified sellouts. Well, Malcolm said point blank, we don't need cash. We don't need bullets. All we need is loyalty. But I hear everybody want to do what they want to do, especially regards to these holidays. How many years people been calling for us to boycott the holidays as a show of solidarity? And we can sacrifice them for 1 year, but how many people are willing to do that? You know what I mean? It's just a joke business. It's just a joke business. May the people who are serious be organized and come together and knock out all these jokers. I'm going to leave it at that. More love.
All right, love back at you, Jay. I appreciate that. Very thoughtful, wise words from Jay out of West Philly. Let me go ahead and take a break. When we come back on and I appreciate what you're saying, George. We could all be doing more. I could be doing more. I would love to do more. Being out on, that's not my path. That's not my lane. Certain aspects of how to tackle this issue, particularly from an activist perspective. I've never fashioned myself as an activist or someone, being in a certain room to do a certain thing. I do what I do. And so I do that to the best of my ability. Would I like to do more? Yes. And I'm exploring ways I could do more. But we all have to, this is not a thing where it's like, one special person or a group of special person we all got, this is our city. It's our community. It's our neighborhoods, our blocks. It's our streets. It's the same thing as when I had to, once or twice a week, I had to go out in front of my porch and clean up in front of my house and the next 4 houses down on both sides of my house. On some of those afternoons, sometimes hot afternoons when I didn't want to do it. We all have a responsibility. We all do if we really want to fix this thing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm suggesting. And there's I'm not saying people should go on the streets and confront people with guns. I didn't say that. I'm just saying we have to be a lot more creative and a lot more artistic and innovative. And we're not. There's a whole lot of things we could be doing we're not doing. There's a whole lot of things we've talked about and discussed on this program, things I've written about in the Philadelphia Citizen. People are just, those ideas that other cities are doing it. Other places are doing it. Philly, before I go to break, I'm sorry, Troy. Philly has a bad problem, and y'all need to catch yourselves. We all need to. Sometimes I get caught up in it too. It's the Philly way. We complain about a lot, but we don't do. It's like, we don't do a whole lot. And we gotta snap out of that. Like, do it. Let's get to it. Let's plan. Because if you fail to plan, if you don't do any planning, you're gonna plan to fail. So, and we have to do that. This has to be an all hands on deck collective community response. That's the only way. I mean, when you have violence levels this high, yeah, it's going to be multiple players and multiple people, and everyone's going to have to be, and we're going to have to all figure out our role, and we have to figure out roles that people play in order to get it. That's all I'm saying. And trying to motivate people to understand that, that this is that's the moment we've arrived at this point, while at the same time, identifying the problem areas and the people who are ineffective. But then we also have to understand, like, okay, well, police commissioner is there, like, yeah, we're gonna have to put the pressure on. We're gonna have to light her up. She's here, and so, like, get to work. All right, let me take a break. When we come back, thanks, Drew. I'm sorry about that. When we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be talking with Christine Knapp and Helena Rudolph about food waste programs in the city. There's a lot of food waste. Got high food insecurity in the city of Philadelphia. Food insecurity is like, I think it's like 30% plus, and people wasting food. Once again, it's one of those issues got to tackle. That also feeds into your violence problem. All this stuff is interconnected and intersectional. But anyway, before I go off on a tangent, Christine Knapp and Helena Rudolph from the Office of Sustainability is going to talk about the city's food waste program, trying not to let food go to waste in the city because it's needed. Here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice. $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com.
To African Americans, what do you have to lose?
More than we could have ever imagined. Trump's policies make black people less safe, and his downplaying of coronavirus cost black lives. It's time to elect someone who cares about us. Joe Biden. Joe will fight racism and injustice everywhere. He'll expand Obamacare and rebuild our economy so it works for all of us. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it.
Paid for by Ask Me People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AskMePeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. WURD app as well. Download that on your Google Play Store or your Apple Store as well. Christine Knapp is the director of the City of Philadelphia's Office of Sustainability. Also, Helena Rudolph is program coordinator for the city's food waste program. City does have food waste programs. That is becoming a problem citywide. The city is responding to it recently. It is a problem, frankly, the city should not have. We should not be. I'm sorry. I don't mean to do this, Christina, Helena. Just a little bit of host prerogative here. Like, it's amazing that we're having a conversation about food waste in a time like this in the city of Philadelphia. But it is something, unfortunately, that has to be tackled. Shouldn't even be existing in the first place. But I'm going to let you two talk about it and about how much of a problem that is, to the point where it's prompted the city to create a program for it. How are you both doing this morning? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us on, Charles.
All right, good to talk with you, Christine.
Morning.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks so much. Always appreciate your time, appreciate the work. Helena, I'm going to go to you first before I start with Christine. How bad is you've had to create a program, you're coordinating a program for food waste in the city of Philadelphia. And I've had this conversation before in this program. How bad is well, first of all, how bad is food insecurity right now in Philadelphia? And then two, how bad is the food waste situation?
Yeah, so food insecurity in Philadelphia, last we know, was about 1 in 5 Philadelphians experience food insecurity. We unfortunately don't have data on how that might have changed in the past 6 to 8 months, but I think we can assume that it's higher. And we know that about 40% of all food is wasted in the United States, and that is true in Philadelphia as well.
Wow.
And I think that, as you were saying, this is an apparent problem, and really there's no acceptable amount of food waste. The environmental impacts of food waste are really great. Food waste emits a lot of methane in landfills, and it's a really valuable material when it can be composted, and it's even more valuable when we can use it to feed people. So we're trying to tackle food waste up and down the food waste recovery hierarchy, starting with feeding Philadelphians, and then finally recovering any food that is unusable to use for more productive purposes.
Yeah. No, this is good, Christine. Yeah, and thank you, Helena. And so you got the Office of Sustainability is in on this effort as well, and talk about the problem kind of from your perspective, and working on sustainability issues, environmental issues. Normally when you and I are talking, we're talking about environmental issues, issues like flooding and the need for some more expanded solar capacity in the city. What makes the issue of food waste? Expound on that, because Helena kind of hinted at that, right? About the methane that develops from landfills, and people don't realize this. Food waste eventually becomes a really serious environmental problem and air quality, water quality problem, right?
Yeah, I've often heard of food waste being referred to as one of the dumbest problems that we have as a society, where we have people who need food and we have people who are wasting food, and it's that wasted food is causing all sorts of problems. So it's frustrating. I think I hear in your voice as well that we do have this problem, but we also luckily have some ways that we know we can address it, and that's what we're excited to be launching, some programs to specifically explore some of those programs. From the environmental perspective, there is a lot that goes into creating food. Depending on what the food is that you're talking about, there's agricultural impacts of water and use and land use, and then the shipping of food from wherever it was grown to wherever it gets processed to then the store, then to your home. The refrigerants that are often used, the coolants that are used are actually an intense carbon impact. So there's all this sort of carbon embedded in the creation of food to then have a chunk of it end up in a landfill to then create more pollution. It's just really frustrating. And again, knowing that we need food to feed people, we have to jump in here and make sure that we're addressing both of these problems at the same time.
Yeah, no, that's so great. So, Helena, you've been managing, I didn't realize the city had food waste programs in existence that had been tackling this problem for quite some time. It is receiving funding. You just announced recently that you're receiving funding and technical assistance from 2 different sources. Talk about that. First, talk about what it is the city has been doing for a while now, tackling food waste, addressing that issue, and then explain the grants that you're getting, the funding, technical assistance that you're getting from you're getting from the Natural Resources Defense Council, and then you're also that's the technical assistance part, but the grants coming from the the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I first of all want to acknowledge the Food Policy Advisory Council, which has a zero waste subcommittee, and they've been doing really excellent work around food waste for years. And the working group that is sort of organizing this project with NRDC is existing underneath that committee, and there's really a wealth of knowledge of both, food waste diversion, which is sending food waste anywhere other than the landfill, and also food donation in our city. So I'm really grateful to have input from so many people in our community in that group. And then otherwise, some food waste work has existed in the city's former Zero Waste and Litter Cabinet, and now that's been transferred over to the Office of Sustainability. We previously worked with NRDC to calculate our city's food waste sector by sector, and also estimate sort of the food rescue potential from each sector. And that project took place about a year ago, and so we're using that data to inform how we're moving forward with these strategies that NRDC is helping us to implement in the city. We're going to be implementing up to 5 food waste recovery and diversion strategies over the next 2 years, with the help of that technical assistance. And then we're also going to be receiving, as you said, financial assistance from USDA to pilot a food service business challenge. And this is actually a project that NRDC has piloted in other cities. And so it's fitting in really well with that other project that the city is taking on. And so these pieces are kind of just all coming together to create a more comprehensive program that's allowing us to tackle food waste in commercial sector, also in the residential sector, but also in our municipal buildings.
And Christine, how is this issue, or how is what the city is doing intersecting with other efforts, with other aspects of city government? What's the multi-agency cooperation look like? And, because I see, we were just having a spirited conversation with listeners about violence, and obviously we reached a very grim, I'm sure you two are aware, we reached a very, very grim, very deadly milestone in the, officially, as of today, as of the most recent Philadelphia homicide report. The number of homicides in Philadelphia surpassed the total year of homicides in 2019. So is this type, I feel like an issue like food insecurity, food waste, that directly links to escalating violence in the city, because people are hungry. And then when people are hungry, people do desperate things. So are we intentionally looking at this and tackling this issue in the context of other major problems, like the poverty problem, the violence problem? Obviously it's pandemic, and there are issues as far as a lot of low-income Philadelphia public school students not having access to food. So how are we intersecting that with all these other problems plaguing the city?
Yeah, I think you're right that there is so much interconnection between our problems. I think this is something we've been reflecting a lot on, in the last 6 months or so, when we've had a global pandemic. We've had, the uprising for racial justice. We've had a tropical storm devastate, Eastwick, extreme heat events going on. We've had a bunch of different crises going on at the same time. We're really trying to reflect on some of the common roots, that have caused these. I think a lot of people are just looking at, 2020 is, just a bad year. And I think the reality is more these are some, predictable outcomes of problems that we've been highlighting for a long time that do have some common roots that we need to be reflecting on and finding common solutions towards. So I think you're right that, you cannot work in silos to find transformative solutions. That's never the way that transformation works. So it's always by bringing groups together with different perspectives and different expertise that we're going to be able to really make transformation happen. So, from this perspective of just looking at food waste, but then as you've been reflecting out on how food insecurity is connected to that, and how food insecurity is connected to poor educational outcomes. Kids can't learn if they're hungry, and violence and everything else. So there's a lot that we need to make sure that we have for those perspectives involved in this. And as Mona said, FPAC, the Food Policy Advisory Council, has been, I think, a really amazing outlet for a lot of folks who have experienced food insecurity, who are in the food service industry who are, urban gardeners and farmers who have all sorts of different experiences with the food system to kind of share their expertise for many years now, and are certainly going to be an important component of this work. I do just want to say, maybe Helena can expand, that these projects that we're going to use assistance to move forward are definitely interdepartmental. We have, many other city agencies that are going to be a part of moving this work ahead, and Helen, you want to mention a few of them?
Helena, when we talk about food waste, right, how do we define that? Like, what's the definition of that? Like, I think that this might be very instructive for households, for families, because we're all engaged in food waste on some level. And so how do we know what's the working definition of food waste? And how do we know when we're committing food waste as individual families, households, or even in our neighborhoods or whatever, so we can stop it, so we can change our behaviors. So I think that's a big piece of this too.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. And I would note too that Philadelphians actually waste less food per capita than residents in other nearby cities, and so we know that
I believe that.
Already very conscious.
I believe that.
Right? We know that our residents are conscious of this, and they're already conserving the resources that they have more than our neighbors in other cities. And so there are several types of food waste, and they get more and more difficult to tackle sort of category by category. There's sort of I think what we picture when we think of food waste, which is, you're throwing your leftovers in the trash when maybe you could have eaten them or put them in the freezer and saved them for later. But then there's what I would consider non-edible food waste, or the pieces of food waste that are particularly difficult to find reuse for. So things like avocado pits, banana peels, things that are more organic waste that can be composted, but you can't really, and the average resident can't reuse those in any sort of productive way, or any way that they, I think, would actually want to eat those items. And then there's like food scraps that maybe we're used to throwing out, but we actually could use in our own homes. So in certain cases, like, there's not really a reason you have to peel your potato. You can eat the skin on a potato. You don't have to throw it out. So there's sort of cultural ways that we use food that I think can use some shifting that would prevent food waste in certain cases. But this is why we have to sort of move up and down the food waste recovery hierarchy and find different ways to handle food waste, because we're never going to be able to prevent every single bit of food waste. But that just means we need systems that can manage them in a way that is more productive than sending our avocado pits and banana peels to a landfill.
Yeah. Go ahead. Were you about to say something, Kristen?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No, thank you for that, because I think that that's important as far as what we're doing, kind of and I do believe that. I do believe Philadelphians, generally speaking, are very conscious about I'm like that myself. I eat everything on the plate. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, that guy's from Philly. So, even if I'm in a restaurant, I just naturally, it's instinctively, I could be in a high-end restaurant and everyone there with me, and they kind of leave food on the plate. I've always noticed that I'm the only one at the table sometimes that's everything on the plate is totally done, and that's just probably just I realize now that that's kind of a natural kind of reflex from growing up in North Philly and just being kind of very conscious about not wasting food. I think that that's real important. As far the composting, right, Christina? Some of these tools, some of these technique strategies that we can use to keep food waste from happening. How do we make this kind of information, or how do we make these kinds of tools and techniques and strategies like composting, for example? People may not know what that is or what we're talking about. How do we make that more user-friendly and accessible to folks?
Well, one quick thing is that being partnering with Councilman Catherine Gilmore Richardson to put on a webinar about how to compost and what your opportunities are. So we're still trying to nail down the date. It looks like it's going to be this month, though. So once I get that information, I can certainly share that with you, Charles, if you can share that with the WURD listeners, and maybe some folks will want to jump on and learn more detail. But I think one of the strategies that we are pursuing as part of this work to get to that point of education and engagement is this community composting network that our friends at Parks and Recreation have been leading. Where about 20 different community gardens are setting up community composting on their site. Part of that is to help support the urban gardeners there, because they often obviously have organic waste, and rather than having them have to haul it, back home or off site, they can now compost it on site. Makes those sites a little bit better, but also to start engaging some of the surrounding community and allowing them to bring their organic waste there so they can learn about what is compostable, what is not, how do you do it, how do you turn the soil over, what are the systems, so that people can start learning more about it, right in their own communities. And that's something that we think has a lot of potential. We're excited to see how that grows and grows people's sort of awareness and understanding of compost.
Okay, great. We've been talking now. I'm going to have to let you both go. Now, I appreciate this work. Appreciate also the conversation. We want to keep track of what's happening. We've been talking with Christine Knapp, Director of the Office of Sustainability for the City of Philadelphia, and Helena Rudolph, who is the Program Coordinator for the city's food waste programs. And more information. People can just go to phila.gov, because all this is under the Office of Sustainability, right, Christine? So phila.gov/greenworks. Is that correct?
Phila.gov/green.
Oh, /green. I'm sorry. Phila.gov/green for more information and to also get more involved with the city's effort as far as food waste is concerned. We've got to bring you two back, because there's a lot more to kind of cover with this issue. We want to make sure people are very aware of it and cognizant of it. If you say, and I believe it, per capita, Philly is actually less of a food waste place than neighboring cities. Well, we want to see how we can be better at that. And so I think this is really important. This is important work. I appreciate you both working on it and joining us this morning to talk about it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Charles. Have a good day.
All right. You too. All right, let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, we're supposed to talk with Mustafa Rashid of Bellevue Strategies, heading into a weekly strategist segment. He's coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't miss the Electric Magazine Show, hosted by Cody Anderson and Vicky Leach. Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
New Voices for Reproductive Justice is registering Black women and their families in Philly to vote. The general election is on November 3rd. You can register to vote online at rock.vote/New Voices. That's rock.vote/New Voices. The deadline to register is October 19th. If you need assistance registering to vote, visit newvoicesrj.org.
No fear, just facts. WURD.
Did you know that in Pennsylvania, ex-offenders have the right to vote? If you are currently on probation or parole, you have the right to vote. Even if you are currently in jail awaiting trial, you have the right to vote. If you have a family member, close friend, or someone else who is an ex-offender, encourage them to vote. The Hairston Foundation for Social Justice urges all Pennsylvanians to vote. Time is of the essence to register or apply for an absentee ballot. To learn more, visit thehairstonfoundation.org. That is HAIRSTON foundation.org.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting WURDradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Welcome back to Reality Check. It is Tuesday edition, and we are headed into a weekly strategist segment. We got Mustafa Rashid of Bellevue Strategies joining us now. Go to @Mustafa Rashid on Twitter, on social media. BellevueStrategies.com for his Philly-based firm, Center City-based firm. He joins us by phone. Mustafa, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Charles. How are you? Thanks for having me.
All right, good. So much to cover, so much to talk about. Obviously, we're a little bit over 25 days ahead of election day. So I was seeing some polling. I think it was a Change Research poll where we have Biden ahead by 4 points. That just seems slim to me. Just kind of give your thoughts, your assessment of how things are going in this big and very important battleground of Pennsylvania.
I think, and I know we've said this before, is that everything you need to know about how important Pennsylvania is, you can learn from the attention that, and I could say the four candidates, so President Trump, Vice President Pence, former Vice President Biden, Senator Kamala Harris are in town, are in Pennsylvania every week rather. So that shows you just how important it is. And I am not at all surprised that there's a narrowing of it. You know, more people are paying attention to it. They realize the stakes. It seems like both sides are fully engaged right now. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that polls are narrowing. I think those are accurate.
Polls are narrowing considering everything that's going on. And I wonder, like, I guess it's all just a battle of the bases. I mean, and things are that hotly polarized. Yeah. It's so, I mean, is it even worth the Biden campaign at this point, or Democrats, to be trying to conduct aggressive outreach to 2016 Trump voters if things are that slim, if things are that polarized, if people are that dug in their respective camps?
I think so. And I know a lot's been said about the Obama Trump voter, but there's a conventional wisdom, there's a reasoning there that if that voter can be reached, it's certainly worth the conversation. President Trump won Pennsylvania with 44,000 votes, and a few votes here, a few votes there in every county can make all the difference. It certainly can, and so I think you have to go unturn no stone to reach as many people that you think you can convince.
Yeah. Definitely too, Mustafa. Like, how do you think? So Philadelphia, you heard the president last week bring up Philadelphia. People obviously in Philadelphia were not pleased about that. Probably even Republicans in Philadelphia are like, what are you doing, man? Like, but the few Republicans that are there in Philadelphia, well, it's a few of them. are there strange things from what you're seeing that are starting to happen, that you're seeing strange trends? I'm seeing them, obviously, from the president encouraging his folks to become poll watchers, and that could potentially happen at select Philadelphia precincts. There is a bubbling so-called alt-right presence in the city. A lot of people aren't aware, like there's a major publication in Philadelphia
that's correct.
and taken over control now, and control Philadelphia Weekly is now in control of so-called alt-right white supremacists, in parentheses, folks. And so people, I think that's pretty significant. And so, it feels like it's all leading to something. What is that? I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Mustafa.
Well, you've got it's a great call out, Charles. You've got a couple of different things that are moving. One, it's how you vote this year. You've got new voting machines, new from last year. You've got a new voting process. You can vote by mail, no excuse absentee balloting. You've got a lot of different ways that it can happen this year. And then you've got poll locations that normally would be open are going to be closed because of the pandemic. And as we saw in June, it created a lot of uncertainty. One of the things I am hearing are that a lot of folks, especially African-American voters, I'm sure we talked about this before, especially African-American voters, they plan to vote in person. They want their vote to be counted, and they want it to count. And the stories you've heard about the mail service, and I think people are, however long it takes and however difficult it's going to be, are going to vote in person. And I get that. I plan to vote in person myself because I want to make sure that it goes through the right way. And in regards to your other question about poll watchers, in Pennsylvania, you can only be a poll watcher in the precinct and district where you are registered to vote. You can't just say, I'm going to go to Philadelphia and see what's happening there. That's illegal, and you will be stopped and prevented from doing that. That kind of intimidation is against the law, and we simply can't have that.
Yeah, no, people need to know that. And once again, call that number. When you see that kind of activity taking place at the polling precinct, 866-hour vote is a good start, right? And we did have the state director, or Pennsylvania state director of All Voting is Local, who was saying another way to do that, become a poll worker, become a poll observer. Yeah, or you can volunteer to become a poll observer if you become a poll worker. And there's still positions left for that in the city of Philadelphia. Those are closing up fast, but you can get paid for that day. You get paid $250 for that day for working as a poll worker, and I'm hoping more young people do that. How prepared do you feel like the city, and this is more specifically on Democrats in the city, Mustafa, how engaged and how electrified and energetic are they coming? I mean, and I wonder about too the ward leaders, the committee members. I mean, are we seeing all hands on deck here as far as making sure that this process is as open and as accessible as possible? We got the satellite locations, the first 7 just opened up. So you really feel the city is going the distance on this?
I do. And I was going to call that out as the satellite location. Up until October 6th, you can do the same as early voting, that you do it in person. And then after October 6th, you can start your early voting. So I feel like the city, the commissioner's office, the mayor's office has been out front and encouraging folks to make sure that you're registered to vote and to go out there and do it. And I do think there's one area that we should talk about, it should not go without saying, is that you get out and you vote on November 3rd, and be patient. Wait for the process to play itself out. As we saw in June, it may be 10 days to a couple of weeks before we have an outcome, and it's going to be very important that we get this outcome right. And right's going to be better than fast. So just do your part. Make sure that you have a plan to vote. Go and vote, and then let's be patient and watch and wait for these results.
Yeah. I wonder how you react to or respond to this issue here, Mustafa. How do people, especially Philadelphia residents, Philadelphia voters, they're being asked to go the distance, be patient, to go out and vote particularly for Democrats, for a Biden-Harris ticket. And they're living in a city, or they're in certain neighborhoods where the violence is out of control. Because the city has now, as of today, officially surpassed the complete number of homicides in 2019. and surpassed it by like 9 homicides.
Wow.
I mean, just far. That's where we are as a city now, and so we're just 3 months away from New Year's Eve.
Sure.
2020. So how do we separate the two? How do we, because people are asking that question. They're like, Democrats are the ones running a city like Philadelphia, and the city is in pot right now, like particularly with these homicides, and not just the homicides, but we've got nearly 2,800 Philadelphia residents have been shot so far in 2020. So how do Democrats like explain that? Like, hey, listen, understand that as a city and the Democrats that run it, we've got issues and problems we've got to address, but we also need you to stay engaged at the same time in this election.
I think the easy connect the dots is resources. That we have a president in the White House that has declared war on urban cities, and by declare war, I mean starve them of resources for one. And I think you could clearly make the argument that with a Democrat mayor a president in the White House, that they'll be friendly to cities again, and that the resources that we need for workforce development, economic policies, and resources for our police departments will flow again. And right now, we are in a city that is starved of those resources. And without them, it makes it hard to combat all the issues that lead to the kind of gun violence that we're seeing right now.
Yeah. Resources are one issue, though, Mustafa, and that's a legitimate issue. You're right. You're absolutely correct that resources, that's a big part of the issue, because if you don't have the money to respond to the issue, how can you respond to it? And we are in the middle of a pandemic, and money's been tight for everyone across the board. And so it's hard when you're not getting the money and support from Washington, and you're not getting the money and support also from Harrisburg, another place the legislature run by Republicans. Governor Tom Wolf can only do but so much. But do we feel like the urgency is there, or the kind of communication and conversation that City Hall needs to have with residents to reassure them that, hey, you know what, we understand what you're going through. Even with limited resources, we do have a plan. We're having a more direct. People are getting that sense that that's not the case.
I think that as you pointed out, we've surpassed the murders for last year with a little over 90 days to go in this month, a little less than 90 days. No matter what's said, it's not going to be enough. Like, there's just not going to be enough, because there's just too much has happened with gun violence and homicide so far in the city. So you could say the city's doing a great job, but everyone expects more and expects better. So it's never quite going to be enough until it's addressed in a manner that lowers the rate. It's simply that. I think the best job that anyone can do is focus on it, put resources towards it, and then have investment programs that have outcomes. But absent of that, it's never going to be enough to have conversations about it until action.
Yeah. Going back to that national stage, and you're going beyond Pennsylvania. We got this situation unfolding in the nation's capital. The president. I wondered too about, like, okay, the president being sick, but at the same time, he's trying to display machismo here, to show that he wants to beat his chest. I beat COVID, and we know that's not the case. I mean, he's on. If he is really that sick, he's on a significant dosing of steroids.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's going to catch up with him soon.
Correct.
So, man, it's going to catch up with you, dude. Right. So, but how do you think the American public is reacting right now? I mean, are they going to be more sympathetic? I don't know. Maybe if it was just him alone and he was in that hospital room alone by himself and doctors were working on him, maybe he'd get a sympathy vote. I'm not so sure about that, because now it's like he's risking all these other people around him. And so I think, and a lot of Americans, I think, are seeing that.
Yeah, there's no regard for the health and welfare of the staff that are around him. It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer let's do this so that we can stay safe. You're in close proximity with someone who has contracted the virus, and that person is being reckless around you. That has to be alarming. And you mentioned the health care that the president's receiving. I think it's a good opportunity for folks to think about this president's constantly talking about taking away your health care. And he's talking about taking away your health care, and he's getting government-funded, the best government-funded health care that's available, but at the same time, he's taking away your health care. So I think that juxtaposition speaks for itself. himself, and it was something that people will pay attention to right now, is that he's got no regard for how things work and how to take care of other folks, because he's just not interested. He's not interested.
Yeah, no, he's not. We were talking with Mustafa Rashid, founder, CEO of Bellevue Strategies. Go to BellevueStrategies.com for more information. He's at Mustafa Rashid with one E on Twitter, on Twitter.com, where you can find him highly engaged there. And he's a regular contributor here on our strategist segment on Reality Check on WURD. Always good to have him. Mustafa, thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Happy to be on. Thanks, Charles.
All right. Take care. Be safe out there. And let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we will open the phone lines. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
We've all adjusted our daily routines in these unprecedented times. And for many of us, voting at our polling place in November is a routine that means so much. But did you know that every Pennsylvania voter can vote by mail from home this year? Whether you're a Pennsylvania senior, essential worker, or simply someone who needs more flexibility to vote within a challenging schedule, voting by mail allows you to make your voice heard at the ballot box on your schedule while protecting your family's health. You can turn your mailbox into a ballot box by simply visiting votespa.com on your computer or any mobile device to request your mail-in ballot. With November 3rd around the corner, it's more important than ever to request your mail-in ballot today. It's simple, secure, convenient, and safe. This year, you shouldn't have to choose between your vote and your health. We're all in this together, and voting by mail gives you the power to make your voice heard. So sign up at votespa.com or return your mail-in ballot application to your county election office today. Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Support independent black media and join the 4WURD movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Have you heard about Penny? They make it easier than ever to get health coverage.
What if I'm self-employed?
Penny gets you covered.
Unemployed?
Penny gets you covered.
What about my family?
Penny gets them covered too.
But will this fit into my budget?
Penny can connect you to financial help to lower the cost.
Really? Where do I go?
Easy. Just go to PENNIE.com.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. We're back at it. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. And then we head into the noon hour. We're scheduled to talk with Dr. Chris Colbert, the Assistant Program Director of the Emergency Medicine Residency Program at the University of Illinois. So we're going to be talking about COVID and ER doctors across the country. They're all meeting virtually to talk about COVID-19, also how it's converging with the flu season, the stresses and strains that are being felt by ER doctors nationwide. So we'll be talking with them about that coming up in the 12 o'clock in the noon hour. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Also, city officials, including the Mayor Jim Kenney, along with Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark, announcing new legal action against the Commonwealth regarding the preemption of gun safety laws. The city's been trying to press on with gun safety laws in the city, but obviously the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is a very gun-friendly state and has stymied that action or handicapped Philadelphia's ability to pass effective gun reform or gun safety legislation. And so the mayor today announcing this new legal action against the Commonwealth, and it's also following some legislation that had been approved. This is the result of legislation. Remember, we were talking about this at the end of the last year during City Council Live. We were there when they were passing legislation which would allow the city to retain counsel to file a lawsuit against the Commonwealth to carry out its obligation to protect citizens of Pennsylvania in an effort to enact or authorize cities to enact common sense legislation addressing gun violence. So there was, for example, when the city was passing the safe havens law, and so that was the whole effort to prohibit guns and deadly weapons. They had passed that last year. They wanted to prohibit guns and other types of weapons, firearms from playgrounds and rec centers. So that passed the council, but that was it was blocked. That legislation was blocked from public hearing, because they wanted to pass that legislation at the state level as well. After it passed in council, but the whole effort was blocked, and public hearing on the effort in addition to that was blocked by the Pennsylvania General Assembly, which is once again run by Republicans. So they want to cheat on elections, and they want to cheat the city out of its ability to address or to effectively tackle on all levels gun violence. There's a lot of things the city is not yet. City Hall could be doing a lot better here and displaying some better leadership and coordinating, working with what they've got to tackle this gun violence. But then there's a lot of things that do get in City Hall's way. That get, in all fairness, that do get in City Hall's way in terms of how to, and they need that kind of support. They need to Mustafa's point, they need that kind of support from the feds in the state. Every city, there's a lot of cities that are going through this. In addition to Philly, Philly just happens to be like the biggest city with the biggest gun violence problem right now. And so, but all the cities are going through it. All this rising violence, this uptick in gun violence that you're seeing, it's not just happening in Philadelphia, it's happening in a number of other major cities. It's happening in black neighborhoods, black communities, and it's happening under the president's watch. And the president, he is correct. President has been very stingy, and deliberately so, with resources to cities that have heavy concentrations of black people in it. There's cities that are run by Democrats or cities run by black people or black mayors. He has an issue with that, and it's all strategic and methodical, and it is a big piece of it, and it doesn't help the situation. What also doesn't help the situation with respect to Philly is, kind of going back to, it's interesting how I'm to blame, like certain caller wants to lay blame on me, but but then, before we've had this conversation where that same person wants to offer up rationalizations, which I can't understand, but you want to offer up rationalizations for the Philadelphia police union chief holding police or telling his members to not be as engaged in the streets of Philadelphia in terms of the crime fighting, like holding police services hostage. Like that, now that to me is clearly, I mean, I understand he's a police union president and he's not like technically, he's not an employee of city government, but I mean, that's just abhorrent if that is the case. I mean, I do fully understand the politics of it. I understand like what's at play here and what he's doing, and he feels like in his position that's what he has to do. But that's just unconscionable. That's just abhorrent. And not to mention that it's very wrong, and it's lack of, we want to talk about lack of performance. Okay, well, if there are Philadelphia police officers out there who, on direction of their union chief, not on the direction of the police commissioner, their technical boss, the person they're supposed to report to along with the commanders, but on direction of their union chief, an organization that really kind of at the end of the day, they're joining voluntarily, they're taking guidance and directions and commands from him I mean, that to me, that's like, okay, well, let's go back to that scenario because that previous listener brought it up. Like, you get fired for lack of performance. So, so if there are Philadelphia police officers out there not performing like they're supposed to be, just doing basic performance, I understand it's a very hard time and you're a human being. And yeah, and it sucks. You trying to do your job and, but you got people giving you a hard time because of the police violence, George Floyd, Jacob Flake, Breonna Taylor moment that we're in right now. But, you have to make sure you're doing better as a police officer so you're not caught up in those situations. Then don't put yourself in those situations and then call out your fellow colleagues. Make sure that, and I know Philly police officers who do that regularly. They make sure that they call out their friends or their colleagues on the job, like, yo, don't do any stupid stuff. Like, why are you going to do that, especially in the time that we're in? And people got phones and they can just tape things all over the place and you're doing stupid stuff. Like, it's just not that day and age now. But like, if you are, you should be fired. Like, why are you doing? Like, just simple. I mean, because if we're on our job and we're the ones like holding back certain services or certain aspects of performance, we'd get fired, or we would get a warning. Like, but if that's the case, that's just not. That's not only is it not right. It's just it completely defies logic. It just defies like the basic position description. Like, that's the job that's what you signed up for. You signed up for being a police. We didn't tell these folks to become police officers. Okay, I didn't like grab somebody by the neck and say, you got to become a police officer. You got to be out there and you got to do whatever crime fight. These are people who've decided to get into this line of work. So now do the work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that. So like, you gonna blame me? I'm to blame, but you're not going. But you come on here regularly, and you complain about these issues, and I get, and we should all be complaining about it. Everybody's frustrated, but that's once again, like I said, wholesale blame on everyone. And that includes, I'm hoping, that blame also includes the police union chief, as much as it includes the police commissioner, as much as it includes the mayor, as much as it includes the city council. And some people might say, well, that's unfair. I'm doing the work here, but like we all have to kind of act collectively and collaborate. This is not the time for like a circular firing squad or for us to be like pointing fingers and blaming each other. It's to accept the fact that we've all epically failed. And so now, what's the plan? That's at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. That's the point. What's the plan? While we're figuring out the plan, the other big question is, who is running the Philadelphia Police Department? Because on one hand, you're saying that, see the contradiction there? See, on one hand, certain folks are saying, oh, the police union chief, because of the hot political situation we're in, and how the police are spotlighted and how, they're being unfair. They feel like, from their perspective, they're being unfairly criticized. And so they're going to, on one hand, you got the police union chief saying, quietly telling his members, well, you know what? Don't work as hard while you're out there on the beat. So on one hand, you already then admitted that this is what the police union chief is doing, telling his members not to do this. But on the other hand, you want to blame the police commissioner for non-performance. But that, you just admitted that she's in a rock and a hard place. So yeah, I do agree that the police commissioner Outlaw could be doing more. She really needs to like learn better communication skills in terms of like just how to better communicate what it is she's doing with the city and with residents. It's time for her to kind of break out that shell. There are like tried and true communication strategies that she's not doing, she's not tapping to. She's got to have a different kind of conversation because she's not having that right now with the city. And I think that could help her tremendously in her efforts. I mean, she can't just go on the goodwill of black residents who are still kind of giving her a chance and being patient with her because she's the first black female police chief. But I want Commissioner Outlaw to work. I think anybody with sense in the city of Philadelphia wants their police commissioner to work. We want it to work out. We want Commissioner Outlaw to outperform all expectations. And so I think it's we don't want to set her up for failure. We don't want any of these folks to say, I want these folks to just do the job, do the work. So yeah, there's the issue of of the city being under-resourced. It is a problem, and being under-resourced deliberately by folks and folks in the administration and who are in the nation's capital, folks in the Republicans who are running the state legislature. I see that. But then, once again, there are things that people in the city itself, inside City Hall, are not doing. And they have to start doing some things. They have to start, and having a different kind of conversation. Like, people want to hear, and I'm not trying to be overly critical here. I'm really not trying to be overly critical here. I'm not trying to be delegate either. But, like when the city council meets on Thursdays, and we hear it live broadcast here on WURD, there are residents in Philadelphia who are in such a state of anxiousness right now. They don't want to hear council. I'm just giving you just what I'm being told. So I don't want members of council who may be listening in, or staff or people inside the City Hall political machine, to be thinking I'm being unfair here. I'm just telling you this is what's out there, and there's this disconnect. Because you got these folks in the Ivory Tower and City Hall, the grass tops, and I don't know if they really are listening to all the conversations that are taking place and percolating at the grassroots level. And so people, when they hear City Council meeting as a whole, they want to hear a red alert, urgent conversation on the fact that we hit this milestone officially today. People are going to want to hear City Council say that and acknowledge that this Thursday. People are going to be listening out for that. I'm telling you, I'm going to be listening out for it. If I don't hear it, I'll be like, there's a problem. Right? So, because I don't think people have noticed that. I think there are people, I even go to Philadelphia Inquirer, there's no article on it. I don't think people have noticed it yet. And so they're going to want to hear that. They don't want to hear any resolutions or ordinances or bills passed about pieces of property around Philadelphia, because that'll take up a lot of time. They don't want to hear city council members congratulating each other or giving each other high fives or patting each other, kind of subtly on the back about, hey, want to thank my colleague over here for introducing this piece of. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear that, we reached a really grim, troubling milestone, and this is we are going to take up all the space in this session right now to tackle. This is all we're going to talk about. We clearing the calendar. I mean, people want to see that kind of. They don't want to see, normal calendar business as usual. I'm just saying. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be rather revealing on some levels what the tone will be, or what City Council is going to say, or what's going to be their line of business come this Thursday. Because people who are listening to this program and people who are looking at these numbers, or people who are living through this mess, that's what they're looking for. I'm just saying. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm just kind of the messenger here. Folks in City Hall are going to have to operate a little bit different. They're going to have to pivot differently. And then other folks who are in a position who either know what's going on the inside, know what's happening, you gotta have to come up with a plan. We got to get into planning sessions. How do we do this differently? How do we react and respond to this differently? That's what people want to do. People, we already know what the problem is. I think people are exhausted and fatigued from the complaining. They just want to know, what's the plan? Like, what do you got that's different? Come on, let's do brainstorm. All right, I'm sorry I'm late. I know, Troy. I'm sorry, man. Because it hurts talking about this. All right, let me take a break, and then when we come back on the noon hour, we have Dr. Chris Colbert, who's going to be joining us, Assistant Program Director of the Emergency Medicine Residency Program at the University of Illinois Chicago. We're going to talk about ER doctors during COVID, and then we got the flu season coming up on top of that. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Trump spends his time golfing, while COVID-19 hits the black community hard. It's not just wrong, it's immoral. We need Joe Biden. Joe takes COVID-19 seriously and understands the economic and health impact it's had on our community. Joe will listen to the medical experts, and he will protect Obamacare. Trump, he won't even wear a mask. Request a ballot now. Make a plan to vote. Our lives depend on it. Paid for by Ask Me People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AskMePeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in this country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
PECO has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from PECO and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at PECO.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PECO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at PECO.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49. 2020 is the year of voter options. We have many different ways to exercise one of the most important activities in our lifetime. Some of us might be voting by mail, but the rest of us can still vote safely while masked up and social distancing in person at your local polling locations. If you're in Philadelphia, learn more about where your polling location might be at either votespa.com or philadelphiavotes.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. You can take that beyond Greater Philly and the Delaware Valley, throughout the nation, throughout the world. We are on WURD TV and also on WURD app as well. Joining us now is Dr. Chris Colbert. Dr. Chris Colbert, who is Assistant Program Director of the Emergency Medicine Residency Program at the University of Illinois at Chicago. There's an upcoming fall virtual conference being held by the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians. They're having their fall virtual conference coming up. They're going to be talking about emergency medicine, particularly during this pandemic time. And then we've got flu converging on top of this, as well as flu season too. So obviously a lot of stress, a lot of strain, a lot of hard times befalling our emergency room physicians. Dr. Colbert here to talk about some of the issues they'll be discussing at that fall virtual conference and just issues in general during this time of pandemic, what they're bracing for. Doctor, how are you doing, sir? Good morning. Good afternoon, rather.
I'm doing well. Thank you for the invitation. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, and thank you for the opportunity to expand the conversation on not only just COVID, just on medicine in general, giving opportunity for people to gain some insight.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate the time as well. This fall virtual conference that's coming up, you obviously have to do it virtually. Normally you don't. And you know, what is this conference about? Like, so this is something where you all meet annually. So, but I guess it's all going to be consumed by COVID-19. What do you normally talk about? But what's going to be on the agenda coming up for this fall season?
So there's a lot of stuff to discuss in aspects of cutting-edge topics of emergency medicine, but of course at the forefront of this is the various ways in which COVID-19 is affecting the emergency room, affecting patient population, affecting different patient populations, and this is just an opportunity for physicians to kind of come together and expand the conversation on these topics. Again, you are correct. I'm in fact, the chair of CME for the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians, and we have a conference twice a year which allows physicians to meet and just discuss and really have really great, insightful conversation from really great lecturers, really passionate physicians, really cutting-edge topics, and this changes practice. And so what you do is you encourage everyone to come in, to be a part of this conference, to be a part of the conversation, and change practice, and have an effect on change and a positive effect on emergency medicine. And again, one of the biggest topics by definition are going to be COVID-19.
Yeah. What's kind of the state of affairs right now? What's it like for emergency physicians at this moment in time? So we know, we've seen, like, been living through it, and we see the news reports, but especially now that we're so many months in and we're still seeing surges, and even the baseline of surges or daily infection rates is still very high. We're the global epicenter of this pandemic. And so, I mean, after so many months of managing this thing, of going through it and also being exposed to it, what's the state of affairs for emergency room physicians right now at this point? Like, how would you assess that?
So, it's a couple of things. It's not only just involving themselves with the patients and treating patients and having resources available for patients, and because there are some individuals that work in hospitals that don't have the resources, they don't have the pulmonologist, they don't have the ICU beds available, they don't have the other resources. So again, it's an opportunity for people to meet, but there's a lot of dynamics to this. Number one, this is an evolving virus, and the understanding and the management is always changing. It's constantly changing. The reality of this as well is that there's a huge theme of just public distrust. You can't practice medicine right now and not acknowledge that. You're hearing one thing on one TV, from one individual, another thing from the medical community, another thing from the CDC, another aspect from a different entity. And so the patient comes in the emergency room and say, hey, I don't know who to trust. I need some help. I'm looking at these numbers going up. I'm looking at different opinions. And so you have to navigate that. And I am very passionate on my biggest thing, and it sounds very cliche, but seeing patients, providing really good medicine to everyone, but more importantly is kind of bringing back public trust. It makes a difference. Your medical management makes a difference when patients walk in and give you the slanted eye. As emergency medicine physicians, we're doctors by default. People only come to the emergency room because they have to. If you're a pediatrician, if you're a rheumatologist, if you are a specialist, people plan months in advance to see you. No one plans to see the emergency room doctor. They're like, you know what, I've had this headache for 2 days. I'm going to have to go in and see this guy or this woman who I don't know and provide some medical insight. And so that is a part of education as well. That's a part of the conversation. That's a part of the dynamics of COVID-19, is to encourage honest conversation and enhance the public trust when patients come in, so that they provide insight, so that they're very honest with what they provide you and the resources available, so that we can meet in a good place to provide really good standard care.
Has this forced emergency room doctors to train and prepare differently when you especially, like, as you explained with me, you're dealing with that issue, that challenge of trust and confidence. So has this forced a significant or dramatic change in the curriculum? I mean, sort of like when you look at the level of training, the schooling, the curriculum before pandemic, and now we're in pandemic, and so has that dramatically changed as well? I would think so. I think the whole kind of playbook on how to be an emergency physician has completely been rewritten.
Well, and here's the thing, that's honestly a really good point, and it has. The dynamics of everything has changed. You could just, not even just medicine, all the way from sports, entertainment, social or physical distancing, all of that changes everything dynamically. So that's a part of instruction when you are communicating with residents, students. A big thing, a perfect example is that people don't feel comfortable coming to the emergency room. Why? Because they think they can get COVID. So you have to have that conversation when patients come in. Hey, this is the right thing to do. You're at the right place. Or they'll sit in the lobby for 2 minutes and say, there's too many people in this lobby. I don't feel comfortable here. So we have to evolve. We have to create you create a triage so that you have different rooms or you expand the triage room so there's not as many people in the lobby or there's space between each seat. That is an evolving process of teaching not only just staff but also physicians to be understanding and to accommodate patients when they're at a vulnerable place coming to the emergency room. Also with that, people don't feel comfortable sitting in the emergency room in their bed. Like, hey, I'm admitted. Why do I still have to stay in this room? Or, hey, can you discharge me in 5 minutes? I'll bring on an x-ray. I just don't feel comfortable here. That's an honest opinion. That's a very honest statement, and it's understandable. So with that, you evolve with the current cultural changes, medical changes, and you try to accommodate again so you can provide really good, trusting medical management for all patients.
Yeah, no, it's I know it's been just a very difficult time. We're talking with Dr. Chris Colbert. He's an emergency room physician himself, and also we're talking with him about the virtual conference that's taking place now. The American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians are engaged in, or are about to be, it's between October 11th and 14th, engaged in their fall virtual conference. We're talking with him. He's also chair of continuing medical education for the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians, co-chair of Illinois College of Emergency Physicians. He also served as lieutenant colonel, or he served now as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. He's joining us here on Reality Check, and we're just talking about kind of the pressures that emergency room physicians are dealing with. There's so many questions here too. How worried are you about the flu season now coming? Because that's what typically would happen in a year is you're the doctor by default, the physician by default, and a lot of people, particularly people in vulnerable, low-income circumstances, will go when they start feeling extremely sick. They would know, especially during those heavy flu seasons, they'll go straight to the emergency room. So what are we bracing for, doctor, and what are we preparing for as far as this flu season on top of the coronavirus pandemic?
So here's the thing. This is flu season. If this was 2019, if this was 2018, you would have tons of conversation of, hey, prepare for the flu, get your flu vaccinations, those at-risk populations, anyone 6 months or older. We would have this big discussion, but the thing is that this flu season is met with COVID. We never got out of COVID season, and in fact, those numbers for COVID are, by definition, going up. This is not translating into ICU beds taken by COVID. However, it's a topic of just supply and demand. So when you have patients that come in the emergency room with a fever, now they're concerned, hey, is this COVID or is this the flu? Which, again, is a realistic question, but that also says, hey, ER, are you prepared for an influx of people that come to the emergency room? And what are you doing to prepare for that? I'm a huge health advocate. If you are concerned about anything medically, my comment is always to go to the emergency room. Don't wait. There was a time when COVID was really first, the early topic, like at the end of March and early April, where people just weren't coming to the emergency room, period. They were staying at home with fevers. They were staying home with strokes. They were staying home with cardiac concerns because they were too concerned. And so we honestly got to a place where I think the community understands that their pathology or any concerns need to be assessed, and that your hospital is making accommodations to keep you safe, but also to ensure good standard of care. And then, boom, we get hit with this, oh, by the way, we've got this possible twin-endemic with the flu season, and on top of that, COVID numbers are going up. I would encourage anyone to utilize their medical resources as they would if this was 2019, to feel safe going. And if you don't, communicate that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. And I always say this to patients as well. If you were to walk into a restaurant and say, hey, there's trash on the floor, someone needs to clean the restroom, you have no reservation with that. But people will come to the emergency room and keep their concerns quiet. If you don't communicate that, they'll never know. We won't change. We won't evolve. So say, hey, you know what, I'm coming to the emergency room. I've got fever. I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z. What accommodations will be made for us to make me feel safe and comfortable and my family safe and comfortable? And those hospitals should be able to communicate that to you. And I'm confident 9 times out of 10, those hospitals can answer those questions, and you have a good doc on the inside there to help.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's that other conversation you all are having within your community as emergency physicians, though, doctor? I mean, as you're seeing these surges continue, you see people not following the types of basic guidelines that they should follow, particularly certain people at the highest levels of government not following simple instructions like wearing a mask, not gathering in crowds. You know, people are still doing things against those basic guidelines. And so I know that's got to be frustrating for you as an emergency physician, people just not listening to basic instructions.
It is. There's no better way to say it than the way you did. But also this, at the core of this, is it causes distrust. No. If you're seeing people take off their mask, discharged from hospitals, positive for COVID, still doing what you want to, and then you've got a whole community of board-certified doctors saying, this is what you don't do, there is just room for public distrust. However you want to cut it, that's the bottom line, are the patients. And again, you hit the nail on the head. I don't want to go off in the weeds on this one because that really gets going.
I do. And you know what, I'll be honest with you too, I'm deliberately avoiding having a conversation with you about what's unfolding in the nation's capital because I feel like we got to make this more about what folks like you are going through. We have to make this more about, you know, the folks who have been victimized by the pandemic. We can't forget about that. You know what I mean? And how do we, because it's easy to do that, to get caught up in the headlines and then, but the point that you are making is a very significant point. It's a crucial point. There's that trust issue. Because if, like, you know, you're going into the hospital or you're going into, you know, Walter Reed Medical Center just one day and then a few days later you're coming out and everything's cool, the people are wondering, like, okay, well, you're going to have some people out there who might be rabid followers of the president who are saying, oh, well, you know, see, it wasn't a big deal. Maybe this is a hoax all along, you know, and that's dangerous.
And the thing
that's
about
dangerous
this is the fact is that those people have different resources than even me. Like, you can get a test every day. Like, right. you can't put it, and that's misleading because you're letting the public think, oh, well, you know, COVID isn't that bad and X, Y, and Z, and you can, no, this individual has so many different resources that you don't have. Can go to the hospital whenever you want to, can receive different medications that are cutting edge, that work, but you don't have resources to that. You don't have resources to that. You can't. If you get sick with a fever, you sit in the lobby. Yeah. You ain't sitting in the lobby.
Right.
It's not. And
that's not going to happen. Right.
It's not. And again, good for those individuals who have those resources, but don't portray the resource availability and one's ability to do something like that as if everyone can do that or everyone has the ability to do so. And it's just bad practice anyway. It's just bad practice. You want to be inclusive, and we're talking about health policy. I'm not jumping into politics. I'm just talking about health. Just health. Our parents taught us when we were young to cover your mouth when you cough, wash your hands, and to keep distance people that are not feeling well. We were taught when we were 3 and 4 years old. Somehow that basic fundamental health provision has turned into politics now. And I am a very knowledgeable physician with tons of accolades. To get to a point where I'm on TV doing radio interviews to tell the community to wear a mask during a pandemic, like, that's ridiculous. Yeah. Wear a mask. there are people dying. We were talking about COVID-19 in March, and we're still talking about this in October. The numbers are going up, and now we're readmitting patients to the emergency room. Initially, the numbers were going down, and then the community felt comfortable not wearing a mask, not social distancing. And the morbidity and mortality is significantly skewed towards specific patient populations, which ER doctors at all hospitals are seeing this. So it's just a question of numbers. It's just a question of numbers. If you want to have an insightful conversation in reference to this, ask a physician. Ask a physician, get insight from a physician. If my car doesn't work, I don't see a plumber about my car. I'm not saying the plumber doesn't know anything about a car, but if my car doesn't work, I'm going to a mechanic. Ask questions, get informed answers, and make informed decisions. And again, this is just being a health advocate.
Real quick, Dr. Tu, I want to ask you, because talking about like disparities, and is that a conversation that's going to pop up as far as the treatment of different types of populations when they're going to, because that's something I haven't gotten a clear picture on yet, and I don't know if data collection is taking place, because we had issues with maltreatment of different populations, like black populations, for example, always had that issue going to a hospital and getting a biased racist treatment from medical professionals and doctors. Is that something that we're addressing or we're paying attention to more as we've been going through this pandemic?
Social emergency medicine is an aspect of looking at medicine and how social determinants of health play a part of this. And this affects all aspects of medicine, period. And anyone that says it doesn't is not being honest with medicine. That's number one. Number two, this is one of the biggest panels that we have in reference to this conference on social EM. We address racial bias, gender bias, physician bias. If anyone says there's no bias, those are the people you need to be concerned with, because there's just no way you don't have any specific bias. It just doesn't happen. We're all human beings. And with that comes bias, and addressing bias and identifying where bias persists. There's absolutely no, these aren't made up issues. Statistically, if you look, African Americans receive less pain medication than Caucasian patients. It's just a matter of pulling up the data. If a patient walks into the emergency room and is a woman and says my pain is a 5 out of 10, or a male and says my pain is a 5 out of 10 for my chest pain, the male statistically goes back before the female does, because it is interpreted as a reliable 5, as an exaggerated 5. Again, this is just a matter of just looking at documentation now. You can pull up all data on computers, because everyone comes in and says, what's your pain? My pain is 5 out of 10. What is your gender? What is your age? It's just a matter of just collecting the data and looking at it. But with that, the positive aspect is that there's such a momentum, there's such a passion for addressing these issues within medicine. Again, this is something that we are discussing at the ACLEP conference. It's a social EM panel where we address these concerns, where we identify these biases and make a positive direction toward management, patient care, and patient outcome.
We've been talking with, unfortunately, I got to let you go. We've been talking with Dr. Chris Colbert with the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Medicine, and they have their virtual conference that's coming up. He's also assistant program director of the Emergency Medicine Residency Program at the University of Illinois at Chicago, chair of continuing medical education for the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians. He's been joining us here on Reality Check. Dr. Colbert, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for allowing this opportunity to expand the conversation on health and patient outcome.
Excellent, excellent. Now, be safe out there. Thanks so much for your work. Be safe. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be talking with Dr. Cheryl Bettigal, who is the director of the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention for the City of Philadelphia. She's going to be coming up next to talk about the latest tobacco industry lawsuit, the city that is engaged in, trying to keep tobacco from children, from youth in the city of Philadelphia. So that's coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home in the happy hour with Sincerely Sarita, Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m. right here on WURD Radio 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hello, this is James Harper Jr., Business Manager of Labor's Local 413 in Chester, PA. I'm here to remind all the listeners of Labor's Live on WURD to make sure you, your family, and friends are registered to vote. We're at a pivotal time in our country's history where we have to make sure we bring common sense back into politics. We can no longer let hate, racism, and lies govern our country. We stand on the shoulders of kings and queens, warriors and activists that fought and were even murdered to give us the basic responsibility to exercise our right to register and vote. We dare not let them down.
Don't forget to tune into Labor's Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. on WURD, WURD.
It's Health and Wellness Week with Tiffany Bacon, now through Thursday on WURD Radio. Tonight, join Tiffany for a conversation on cancer as she explores breast and colon cancer and how they affect the Black community. Health and Wellness Week. This Monday through Thursday from 7 till 9 p.m. Hosted by Tiffany Bacon. Exclusively on WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, and watch live on WURD TV via Facebook. This is WURD Radio, independent Black media. The EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit, Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday, October 12th from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. In recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day, EcoWord and WURD Radio will host an Environmental Justice Summit to explore topics at the intersection of Black and Indigenous rights, income, and the environment. This day-long multimedia, virtual, and on-air event will bring together artists, thought leaders, and environmental justice advocates for groundbreaking conversations about climate change, land reclamation, water quality, and how it all converges in the Philadelphia region and beyond. It's the EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit, Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday, October 12th from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. Exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook. Presented in partnership with Bartram's Garden and From the Source Reporting Collaborative. The EcoWord Environmental Justice Summit is sponsored by PICO and the Alliance for Watershed Education and supported by the Lenfest Institute and the William Penn Foundation. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. We are back at it here on Reality Check's Tuesday edition. 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Dr. Cheryl Bettigal is the director of the Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention for the city of Philadelphia tobacco industry, recently filing a lawsuit against the city regarding its regulations, its laws that are prohibiting children and young adults from accessing candy-flavored cigars and cigarillos. So apparently the tobacco industry not too happy about that, filed a lawsuit. The city snapping back at the tobacco industry, obviously engaged in litigation with them. It's very interesting that well, it's also predictable that the tobacco industry would do this. We're going to talk with Dr. Cheryl Bettigal to get some update on that, and also on what the city is doing as far as youth or child access to tobacco in the city. Dr. Bettigal, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, good to have you back too. So this lawsuit, people might not be aware. Obviously there's a lot going on. So last thing I'm sure people are thinking of is the city being sued by tobacco companies, and like, why would they? But what's happening with people are probably not aware that this is taking place. What's going on with this? Why are they suing the city?
Yeah, so the tobacco industry essentially is suing to be able to continue marketing these fruit and candy flavored cigarillos, which you've probably seen if you walk around North Philly or West Philly at all. These are packs of 4 or 5 for 99 cents. So they're very, very cheap. They're packed with tobacco. So each stick, each cigarillo has about the same amount of tobacco as a single cigarette. And they come in flavors like vanilla mint chip or brownie or mango, bright, shiny wrappers that look like candy. So the industry is suing because they want to be able to continue to market these in stores that kids and young adults who don't smoke go to. So the city didn't actually ban these products, but City Council did pass a law in December of 2019 that said these products shouldn't be marketed in just anywhere where people are all the time. It normalizes really poisonous products. They can be marketed in stores that don't admit kids and that are only tobacco stores. So if you're going to one of these stores, you're presumably going to buy tobacco. You're a smoker, as opposed to like the same stores that people are going to buy the groceries or, like a gas station where they're passing by, constantly having that marketing in front of people. So, in the middle of a pandemic, they are suing to be able to continue to market tobacco mostly to black and brown people in the city, because that's where these things are sold.
Yeah. How these measures been going? Do we feel like, I know every now and then we'll hear from a listener or two who may complain about that, like they say that they still see certain stores or certain establishments, stop and go, still selling these types of products to young people in the city. But I mean, what's sort of the city's assessment of how these new regulations have been performing?
Well, so the new law passed in December of 2019. We gave stores 60 days to, for an educational campaign that we did a lot of outreach in multiple languages. We wanted to make sure stores knew about the new law before enforcement started. So that takes us to mid-February. And then you may recall in March, some other things happened. So when the pandemic hit, we had to pull inspections for tobacco products. We normally contract so that there are teenagers accompanied by an adult chaperone who go and they attempt to buy tobacco products. And if they succeed, then the health department tickets. And we had to put that on hold because obviously we didn't want to send teenagers out to stores in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, the information we have is somewhat anecdotal. It seems like it had been going reasonably well, but, then this lawsuit was filed. So enforcement is temporarily on hold because of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some of those products that were being sold. But in general, my sense is that store owners have been trying to comply with the law.
What should people do though? Like, I one listener comes to mind who talks about this a lot and constantly, and for good reason. It's people are concerned about it. But what would you advise people to do? Who should they get in touch with in the city? What's kind of the first step they should take if they're seeing that activity still taking place? They're going to their local stop and go establishment and they're still seeing this type of activity taking place. I mean, can they call licensing and inspections? Do they call your program? What are those steps that you would recommend residents take?
So a couple things. Anybody who sees tobacco of any sort being sold to a minor can either call the health department or more simply, they can just text the word smoke, SMOKE, to 474747. And that's a way of reporting that, you can do kind of inconspicuously while you're standing in line, or, it's not the same as calling a phone number. There's also on...
So text, real quick, run that past me again because I want to make sure that people heard that. So text, who are they texting it to again?
They're texting the word smoke to 474747. And that will trigger a compliance check.
So it's like 3 sets of 47 to the text the word smoke. Okay, got it.
Exactly. And then we'll do a compliance check. We're up and running again, so we can send out a team. And that way, if you think that it looks like a kid, you, of course, we can't ticket based on looks like a kid. So, but it's a way of checking. If it seems like something's going on there and they may be selling to minors, we can do a compliance check and we'll ticket if they are, in fact, selling to minors. Now, right now, the restriction on these products, so these, the fruit and candy flavored cigarillos that aren't supposed to be being sold in stores that are not adult only, that enforcement is on hold right now because of the lawsuit.
Yeah. Wow.
So you might see them temporarily. We're hoping that this gets decided quickly and we can go back to restricting these products and keeping them out of the day-to-day exposure that was happening before.
Yeah, but it's still frank. Like you were saying earlier that, or just a few moments ago, that it seems that most stores, most establishments understand the gravity of this and seem to be like complying. Obviously, it's been very difficult for people to be compliant with a lot of things during the pandemic, but this is important. And I mean, there must be some kind of disconnect there. I mean, if you're an adult store, a store owner, I'm assuming, people who own stores, they have families that they're raising and kids too. Like, why would you be selling? I'm trying to figure out like people's rationalization for selling these types of products or allowing, even if they're taking advantage of the pandemic moment and they feel like, oh, you know what, the city's not watching, let me go ahead and sell these. It's just like, I feel like there's some kind of like other conversation that has to be had. Like, this is just one of those things you don't do. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? That question that always comes up. Right. Who does that? Who sells like tobacco still to kids? Like, people still do that? Like, it's just a really ugly kind of nasty thing to do, a really, really kind of harmful thing to do to the most vulnerable people in a place, in a civilization, young people. You're selling tobacco, a chemical, an illicit substance, a harmful substance to kids. I'm just floored that there are people in the city who are doing that or still doing it.
Yeah,
and I'm horrified that the tobacco industry, I mean, there's just like no conscience whatsoever. Like, oh, we're going to sue the city for protecting its kids.
Yeah, I mean, the whole scenario is just very depressing. And on the other hand, we do see stores, and I would say more and more stores across the city, choosing not to sell tobacco and choosing to, provide healthier products. It's been really interesting. Our staff, when some of the tobacco-free stores, and these are, convenience stores, started opening, we went out and talked to people to ask them how they were feeling about it. And I was really impressed by one of the cashiers I talked to who, I asked how it was going and, was it causing problems not to sell tobacco? Were they getting complaints? And he looked at me and he said, thank God, I can't even tell you how happy I am that I'm not selling death every day. So people get this. They understand that these products kill. And I think, there are some store owners who somehow feel like they have to sell them to make a living. But I think there's a lot of people who would prefer to shop in the kind of store that values the lives of our residents. And, stores that just say, no, we're not going to sell these products because we think these are repugnant and these are killing people. We've just seen a pandemic come in and hit our smokers harder. And that, that disparity in the number of smokers in the Black community is part of what's driving disparities in outcomes. It's by no means the whole thing, but it's a piece of it. And, the reason we see disparities, a big piece of that is this intense marketing in Black neighborhoods, which has been documented for years. So, this is one of the reasons that the health department is so interested in regulating locations of new tobacco permits, trying to get to some form of equity in terms of those permits so that we don't have this pileup of marketing in our Black and brown neighborhoods that is just convincing more and more young people that this is a normal thing to do. It's not a normal thing to do to smoke tobacco. It, takes away an average of 10 years of life from each person who smokes. So if we're allowing that in our neighborhoods, we are allowing those disparities to occur. And that's really, what the health department and the city has said no to. And that's why the industry is fighting us, because they know they have to get what they call replacement smokers. Smokers die, and they die young. And so they're always looking to recruit young people to smoke. And that's teens and young adults. And this is part of how they do it. Yeah. So this feels like a fight worth fighting to us.
What's kind of like the state of smoking right now in Philly? I know that's always been a problem in Philly. And so what do those numbers look like, especially as people have been going through the pandemic? Have we seen less smoking because people understand that it enhances their risk of of being subjected to COVID-19? Are we seeing more smoking? Do we have that kind of data?
So we're trying to collect it. Nationally, it looks like there's probably a little bit of an increase in smoking during the pandemic. There are, of course, some people who've managed to quit. And it's one thing you can do to protect yourself in the pandemic, right? Smoking makes COVID worse, so if you can manage to quit, that's great. On the other hand, people are really, really stressed, which tends to make people smoke more. Right. Overall, over the last 10 years in Philly, we've made progress. Adult smoking is down from about 27% to 19 or 20%, depending on what survey you look at. Teens are way down. We're down to about 2% of teens smoking cigarettes, and then, if you add in cigars and cigarillos and so on, it's higher. But we've made progress, but we're not where we need to be. And just for perspective, we're moving heaven and earth to solve COVID. And in Philadelphia, every single year, we lose about twice as many people to tobacco as we've lost this year to COVID.
Yeah. We've been talking, wow, it's, some progress there, but, still a lot of work to do. And, this definitely, I know, Cheryl, we'll keep in touch, get you back on here to kind of talk about where things are with respect to this lawsuit and just kind of the efforts that you all are doing, just keeping these types of substances out of the hands of minors. But, it's just really important work. Dr. Cheryl Bedigal is Director, Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention for the City of Philadelphia. She's been joining us here on Reality Check. Cheryl, always good to talk with you. Thanks again. Thanks for checking out.
Great. Thanks so much for covering this issue. Take care.
All right. You're welcome. Take care and be safe out there. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We're here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Hello?
Hey, you've been on my mind, so I'm just calling to check in.
Oh, we're holding up well here in Pennsylvania. Just trying to stay safe and figuring out if we should vote in person or by mail. We like going to the polls.
Yeah, you never miss an election.
And we're not missing this year either, and neither should you. But which way is the safest?
Well, remember that valuable information you got from AARP about COVID-19? Mom even had me read it.
Yeah, that was good info.
AARP has up-to-date voting information for 50-plus voters in every state. It's right there at aarp.org/election2020.
Oh, I got it. aarp.org/election2020. I love having the answers before your mama.
Pops, you know what happens when you try to show out.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Smith Play John is a new kids TV show produced by Smith Memorial Playground. Tune in Wednesdays at 3 p.m. on Comcast, Verizon, or PhillyCam.org for at-home play breaks, music time, story time, and to share your John. Details at smithplayground.org.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation? Follow us on social media using the hashtag onWURD. Be heard. Stay connected to WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the upcoming election.
This is Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check on WURD. So with all this talk about vote by mail, you're probably wondering, will my ballot be counted? No worries. 40 states, including Pennsylvania, are tracking mail-in ballots. Simply go to votespa.com and click on Mail-in and Absentee Ballot to find out if your ballot was received. Or go more directly to pavoterservices.pa.gov and click on Election Ballot Status to enter your name, birth date, and county. Keep following us at onWURD on Twitter, facebook.com/4word, and hashtag Word on Politics for constant updates on election 2020. And remember, vote early.
Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900. Before we head into the source in the 1 o'clock hour, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Feel free to call in. And I want to get to some of these comments. Definitely appreciate folks who are chiming in, commenting on our Facebook live stream, our WURD TV stream on Facebook Live. Good afternoon to you now, Shirley Carter, Arlette Wilson, Jeanette Miller, and thanks for watching. Malcolm White, thanks for watching and listening from West Mount Airy. Appreciate you. Gloria Gainey, good morning. Well, good afternoon to you. Phyllis Williams, good afternoon now. Lois Rubin Marks, good afternoon. Just doing a little roll call here. Junior Lee reminding us that South Carolina U.S. Senate candidate Jamie Harrison, the Democrat down there, who could end up becoming the second black U.S. Senator of the Palmetto State of South Carolina, had a great debate against current incumbent Senator Republican Lindsey Graham. It was a clear contrast in positions and plans for South Carolina. Yeah, Jamie Harrison always clobbers Lindsey Graham. So let's just see if South Carolina voters or the majority of South Carolina voters agree. We'll see. The recent polls show it real tight. It's not supposed to be that way for Lindsey Graham, but the polls do show it being tight. And let's see if South Carolina wants 2 black senators. We'll see what happens with that. So Junior Lee, Charles Ellison for president has a good ring. Thanks so much, Junior. Appreciate that. Good afternoon to you, Haraya Deborah Bay. Appreciate you. And Patricia Ivory. Collectively, we should bind. Correct, Mr. Ellison. All groups have mass virtual meeting. And, well, thank you for, I think it was from our earlier discussion about violence in the city and how we should go about it. Nasir Butler, good afternoon to you. Kasahu Sarah, Rise and Shine. Now we full Rise and Shine back at you. Madeline Medley, the Find My iPhone app literally finds my iPhone, a drone, etc. cannot locate some of the gun sources. Are Republicans part of the gun supply chain in democratic cities? So, who knows? But thanks for that, Madeline. Salada C.A. Sankofa, good afternoon. Back at you. Raphael Suleiman, good afternoon. Also, Angela Reason, thanks for that. Yeah, I know there's a caller that had a question about sample ballots. Go to 70.org, and you can build a ballot at Committee of 70's website, 70.org. Thanks for that, Angela. I totally forgot about that, but thanks for the reminder. Geraldine Mayfield, thank you. I was saying good job, Charles Ellison. Sharon Edwards, good to see you. And Julie Taylor here. I really wish that George would stop, was talking about an earlier caller, George, would stop talking so negatively about Commissioner Outlaw, especially regarding the very disrespectful and sexist manner in which he expressed. Yeah, we just had to be careful of that. But thanks, Julie. I don't want to get into the habit of disparaging callers on here, but Julie says she has a female cousin who is a retired D.C. police captain, who I'm certain he would have had a problem with as well. But thanks so much. Thank you, Phyllis Williams. Appreciate you. And Lois Rubin Marks. Not to call out a caller, I appreciate how you continue to focus on the issue and not the emotion. Thank you. And Kasu Husera says, I think food waste is a byproduct of America's institutional racism. We only have poor people because of the way we treat them, and we have become like them now. So, yeah, it's a good point. Nakia Twin Campbell, how you doing? Good afternoon. Junior Lee, the violence has to be approached from multiple agencies. And so he lists, I can't read them all here, from government partnering with local, preferably black-owned landscape companies and provide grants to those companies to offer summer jobs. See, there you go. A collaboration between police, EMT, and fire to have apprentice recruitment programs that structure an age-appropriate training for how each youth can participate in the safety of their communities. See, that's what I'm talking about, like stuff like that. 3, requirements for police officers to live in the area they patrol. Even allow them to own vacant houses at no purchase cost and a grant to renovate. offer educators, medical professionals, and local business owners 50% credits toward purchasing houses in particular areas or vacant houses with grants to renovate. Once we get a certain tax base and interest in our communities, the government will have greater accountability to our communities, plus the mindset of violence will need to be a generational change just to start some constructive thought. See, this is what I'm talking about. That's what when I mean all hands on deck. Junior Lee is, Junior Lee, you hit me up, Junior Lee. C. Ellison at wordradio.com. This is what I'm talking about. That's the kind of thinking. That's what, I don't want to just have people calling here complaining about the gun violence. Come up with some ideas. Like Junior Lee just was spot on with this. I appreciate that. Let me go to the phone lines, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Victoria out of Germantown calling in for a reality check.
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon, Victoria. How you doing?
I could be better, but I truly want to thank you. I'm calling, I'm the executive director of Emir Healing Center, but I'm calling as a regular person listening to Dr. Chris Colbert. He touched me when he talked about how black people are treated for their pain or not treated. And I'm going through that right now, and I'm not the only one. I've talked to friends, I've talked to acquaintances who are suffering, not given enough pain medicine. So I don't know if Dr. Colbert could help with doctors who realize this and who actually treat black people for pain. Is there a connection he might have locally, or he really touched me when he brought that up, because it's true.
Yeah, it really is.
True. It's like you're treated as if she's an addict or she's going to be an addict. That's not true. Mm-hmm. It's not true, and it's not fair that we have to suffer.
No, it's
so
not.
What you say?
Yeah, no, I reach out. I think you're supposed to reach out to me anyway, Victoria. So, because he co-chairs. Now he's in Chicago. He's based in Chicago, but he is a chair of continuing medical education for that organization that's meeting virtually. They were highlighting Dr. Karen Greenberg, who is a major emergency medicine professional in Philly. But it would be interesting to get his thoughts on. I was thinking about it too as we were talking. Like, maybe I need to reach out to this brother about some things that I've been thinking about and working on in tandem with the Council of State Governments, and just looking at some policy solutions and prescriptions to a lot of these things that we're going. Not just with respect to pandemic, COVID-19, and things like the flu coming up, but with respect to violence, people, communities traumatized by violence, like how emergency, and we didn't get an opportunity to talk with him about that, which we have more time to do. We can bring him back. I mean, he's in Chicago, so he knows all about that. They're dealing with that issue, of course. Everyone knows. Yeah. And so, that would be. Go ahead, Victoria. You were saying something. You were finishing up.
Yeah, I looked him up briefly, and one of the quotes, a life lesson quote that he talked about was, "No one cares what you know if they know you do not care."
Mm-hmm.
And that's true.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, it really is true. Thank you, Victoria. So reach out to me. So let's see what can happen with respect to that. Please do. I want to continue that conversation and see what I can do. But yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate your thoughts on this as well. But it's, obviously we got a lot to worry about. We got a lot to work on. But it's a very sad, tragic day in Philadelphia. We did see there was a press conference, or it's probably happening during broadcast. There was a press conference that Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw convened earlier, and she she did point out the milestone that we reached today officially, and that is like the highest that it's been since 2007. She called, using just the usual language that you would expect the police commissioner to use during a moment like this. She called it shameful and sickening, and she said that the department, while not above criticism, quoting her, in its role in addressing gun violence, she was saying that she was stressing that they've implemented various new strategies to increase narcotics and gun arrests. She's saying that the strategies have led to lower homicide rates in certain sections of the city in the past 28 days. So, but it's hard when you're recording 363 homicides so far. That's 100 more than this same time last year, and it's higher than the year-end totals for any year since 2007. And then we had a homicide. It's going to go 364 by tomorrow because you had a 19-year-old man who was shot in Southwest Philly. So that was that happened earlier today. So we've had a lot of people obviously have been shot as well beyond the homicide rate. So and that's the highest annual total that's been in at least 13 years. So we just got 3 months to go on this. But the police commissioner expressing some strong words and saying, well, we need to know what those strategies are. But I mean, I understand you don't want to divulge too much. And I understand too, she's new, and also, she's dealing with a structure, a police department that's set in its ways, and people who are set in its ways. And frankly, she's also got to deal with a totally separate alternative command structure that is the police union. We find out that police unions are the ones running local police departments, not the mayors and the police commissioners. That has to be addressed. That actually has to stop. But, that's where we are with things. All right, that wraps this Tuesday edition of Reality Check. We'll talk about it more tomorrow during our Wednesday edition. Here on WURD 96.1 FM 900 AM. I'm Charles Ellison. You can go to twitter.com @Ellison Report. I want to thank Troy Wilmore as well. On the board is still, we got the Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders. That's coming up next here on WURD. So continue to stay locked in. Keep your radio dial locked in. Keep your live stream locked in to WURD and listen to the Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders. That's coming up next. And in the meantime, Philly and beyond, definitely want you to stay sharp, stay smart. Please stay safe out there, and looking forward to talking with you tomorrow, God willing, Wednesday, 10 a.m. sharp. Have a rest of the, have a safe and good, as much as you can, good afternoon and evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.